The king was disoriented for a while before he was pulled up by his people. "Your Highness, I suppose I am eligible for your request now," Ning said. "My request?" the king asked. He still wasn't done with the shock, it seemed. "To teach your daughter about summoning," Ning said. "Oh, yes. Yeah, you can do that now," the king said. He slowly walked back to his throne and gestured for one of the servants to go call the princess. Ning waited for a bit as they brought the princess. He couldn't help but wonder if the princess too was going to be big and buff like her father. He imagined a young lady that was jacked up and was immediately reminded of Marasi. Nah, he thought. Given my luck, she's bound to be a pretty young thing. "The princess is here," someone said, and Ning turned around just in time to see the beautiful teenage girl walk into the room. Her skin was fair and her orange hair long. Most of all, she was thin, unlike the men around her. Oh, thank God, Ning thought. The princess wasn't buffed up unlike what he hoped. Rank 2 already, huh? She has plenty of spiritual energy. This should be in the bag, Ning thought. However, just then he realized something was odd about this princess. Orange hair. He thought. That was weird. How could the princess possibly have orange hair? Wasn't she only now going to learn about summoning? "Young man, this is my daughter, Janice. She is the one you will have to teach from now on," he said. "Janice, come forward," the king said. Ning watched the orange-haired princess, but she didn't move at all. Instead, he saw someone else move. From behind the young woman, a black-haired child moved forward. Ning looked at the little girl that was barely 6 years old walk forward. The timid little girl barely came up to his waist. "I'm supposed to teach her," Ning thought as all of his plans about immediately finishing the summoning and getting away with his 5,000 pearls came crumbling down. Ning analyzed her a bit and realized that she was barely 6 years old and didn't even have enough spiritual energy to obtain a rank yet. What the hell? This will take a lot more time than just a few days, he thought. When he remembered that he was supposed to teach her until she summoned a rank 2 beast, Ning started frowning. That's going to take forever, he thought. Hello, the princess spoke up in her cute little voice. Hello, you must be Janice, Ning said even as his head was thinking of a million different things. It was a good thing he had good control over his emotions at the moment. The girl nodded but said nothing else. "I'm Ning, your new teacher. Do you want to learn how to summon?" Ning asked. The little girl's eyes immediately widened as if she heard something amazing. "Yes," she exclaimed. "It seems she doesn't hate you, so I will let you teach her as you wish. Joanne will be there if you need anything," the king said. "Joanne?" Ning turned around to see the orange-haired girl bow toward Ning. "I'm at your service," the girl named Joanne said. "Okay, I will go start teaching her then," Ning said dejectedly and left with the princess. Goddammit, that clerk. He should have told me the princess was actually a goddamn child. I would have never taken this job otherwise, he grumbled to himself. "Are you okay, mister?" the girl asked. "Oh, I'm okay," Ning said. "Right, I wanted to ask, who exactly are you to this girl?" "I'm her main maid," the girl said. "Oh," Ning said. "Teacher," the little girl called out. "Yes," Ning said, a little surprised the girl was already calling him teacher without his prompting. "When will I be able to summon?" she asked. Do you know anything about summoning?" Ning asked her. The little girl shook her head. "The basics, huh? Well, she is a child," he thought. "Before we can summon anything, I will need to teach you a bit about summoning and how it works." "What? Can't you just show me how to summon it, please?" she asked. Please, just once. I want to see you summon a big monster," the little girl said. "I don't think I can do that. We're in the palace, so I can't summon anything big," Ning made an excuse. "So, let us just get straight to the—" "We can go to the water," the little one said. "Right, Joanne? It will be fine if we go to the water, right?" The maid didn't know what she should say, so she looked toward Ning to look for permission. "Do you mean the beach?" Ning asked. "Yes," the little girl said. "It's big and wide and you can summon the big monster there." Well, if there is enough room. Ning was getting roped in by the girl's request when he realized what he was doing and shook his head. "No, we are going to learn about summoning and that's it," Ning said. "You can summon a big monster yourself after you learn how to." "Oh," the girl made a curious face. "When will I do that?" Maybe a few weeks," Ning lied. "What? A few weeks? I want to see it now," she said. Ning got frustrated. "No," he shouted, For now, we're going to learn about summoning. Let's go. Ning started walking ahead, but he heard no sound of footsteps. Instead, he heard sniffing coming from behind him and turned around to see the princess with eyes full of tears. Hey, hey, hey. Don't cry, Ning said, but he couldn't stop the princess at all. Please stop crying, princess, Joanne said as she wiped her tears, but Janice still kept crying. In the end, Ning had no choice at all. Fine, come, I will show you a big summon, he said. Really? The girl's tears ended in a split second as a wide smile took over. Come on then, let's go, she said as she took charge and walked in front. Ning started to fear what sort of life he was going to have in the foreseeable future. Ning arrived at the beach and saw the clear blue water extend to the horizon, where only then did he see the ships. Moreover, these weren't the typical travel ships or fishermen's ships, but rather military ships that guarded this open side of the king's palace. Ning wondered why the king didn't simply make his palace at the center of the city like any sane king would do in this situation. But then he remembered how the king was and realized this was probably his choice to show no fear. Hurry, teacher, hurry. I want to see a bead monster, the little princess shouted at Ning. Ning turned around to see the cute, little princess and asked, What sort of beast do you want to see? A big one, she said, gesturing the size with her tiny little arms. Do you want to see one that can walk in the land or the ocean? Ning asked. I don't care. Just hurry and summon a big one, she said. Very well, Ning said and turned towards the ocean. Then, he closed his eyes and used his spiritual energy. As a rank 7 bondforger, more commonly known as a summoner, Ning now had so much energy that he could start tempting the stronger, bigger, and more intelligent beasts to move. Since he didn't have much requirement of them this time, he assumed there wouldn't be many beasts that would give up on the opportunity. He then remembered Safandra's angry face at messing up his bond earlier that day, so he made sure to make the bond with the least loophole. I need a giant beast, regardless of strength and potential, to come to be summoned. In exchange for being summoned and controlled by me, I will give all the spiritual energy in my body, Ning said. Many lights faded this time around due to his size requirement in this case. Of the few lights that remained, Ning chose one that was particularly bright and summoned it. Whoa! The princess said with anticipation as light shined beneath the surface of the water. Ning opened his eyes to see what exactly he was summoning. He could tell what he was going to summon if he focused enough on the light he captured, but that would ruin the surprise and his chance to guess from the summoning circle. Unfortunately for him this time, the summoning happened below the water, so he couldn't see anything. Suddenly, the ocean exploded into a massive spray of water at the sudden appearance of the summoned beast. Princess, Joanne shouted as she went up to the little girl to cover her with her body from the water. Ning simply put his hand up and created a golden barrier in front of him to stop the water from falling on them all. When the sound of the rain disappeared, the princess started shouting from behind them. Move away, I want to see. Joanne, move away. Recognizing that there was no reason to keep protecting the princess, the servant girl let her go and finally turned around to look at the beast themselves. Whoa! Both the girls said at once when they saw the beast in front of them. It was a massive octopus the size of a building. It was nearly 3 stories tall in comparison, even when half of it was clearly under the water still. If it were to stand on its tentacles, Ning wouldn't be surprised if the beast was at least 40 or 50 meters tall. So big, the little princess said in awe. Of course, Ning said. You wanted to see it, right? I don't think she meant this big, Joanne said from the side. Huh? Ning asked. The biggest beast she's seen yet are elephants. She probably meant beasts as large as an elephant when she said big, not this, Joanne said. Ah, well, that's no problem, right? I gave her what she wanted, Ning said before turning towards the princess. Do you like it, Janice? He asked. He was desperately hoping that he didn't just scare the living hell out of this little girl. If she ever became traumatized about summoning, then this job of his would never end, and he would have to go back defeated. He couldn't admit defeat. The girl continued staring at the giant octopus as she tried to form her words. Yes? Ning urged her to speak. Please don't say you're scared. Please don't say you're scared. The princess's face suddenly lit up in amazement as she shouted, I want to ride it. Ning felt a wave of relief when he saw that dazzling smile. Yes, you want to ride it, huh? Let's go ride it. He suddenly grabbed the princess and jumped directly onto the octopus. All right, octopus, Take the princess in that. His words stuck to his mouth when he saw the many ships that were patrolling the waters were now coming towards him. Oh, Ning said. I think I caused some problem. What? The princess asked and looked. He, they want to play too. No they don't want to. Suddenly a cannonball shot from one of the ships at the front and attacked the octopus. One of the octopus tentacles flew out of the water and stopped the cannonball from hitting him. They want to play too. The little princess started giggling. OCCY, go play. The princess shouted so loudly that people in the ships started noticing her. What? The captains of the shops started getting wary of attacking the octopus. Then they saw Ning on top of the octopus with the princess in his grab and started assuming the worst. All hands on deck. The enemy has captured the princess, they started shouting. Ning couldn't believe what he was hearing. Summoners, start getting ready to fight. Everyone else, get to battle station. There should be more than one enemy. The captains shouted and were instantly in fight mode. Ning had a blank face as he looked at the battleships surrounding him. How do I get out of this? As Ning floated on the giant octopus with the princess in his arms, he saw many different aquatic monsters get summoned all around him. They would of course not be able to stop the octopus, but if the octopus attacked back, there would definitely be casualties including some fatal ones. However, if he stopped the octopus from attacking, they would still attack the octopus, in which case it would be injured most likely. What's going on? The king ran out of the palace after hearing the large explosion of water as well as the cannonball shot. Your Highness, can you tell your men to stop attacking? Ning asked. What are you doing? What is that beast? Why do you have my daughter there? The king shouted. Your military, order them to stop please. Ning shouted back. They think I've kidnapped the princess. Oh. The king finally realized the severity of the situation and ran to the edge of the beach while waving his arms. Stop. Stop. He shouted at the men in the ocean. What? His Majesty is ordering us to stop. Are we not fighting? Captain? The people started looking at the ship captains, and the captains instantly understood what was happening. The king is afraid the princess will get hurt if we attack the kidnapper. We will need to do this silently, the captains talked amongst themselves. Ning clearly heard them speak and realized they weren't going to budge. He suddenly turned around and grabbed the maid, Joanne, with his telekinesis and brought her on top of the octopus. Your Highness, it doesn't look like your men are going to budge, so I will be gone for a bit while. Please speak to your men about it all, Ning said. What? What do you mean? The king didn't understand. I will return in just 3 hours, Ning said and touched the octopus. Then, they all disappeared. The king was shocked, and so were the captains. They all searched around for Ning and the princess, but they couldn't find them anywhere. Even though the king was sure his daughter would be fine, he still feared for her a little. Ning and the rest appeared a few dozen kilometers out into the sea, in a location where not many ships roamed. What? Where are we? Joanne asked in surprise. The young princess was too giddy about everything to care. Woohoo, do it again, she shouted. If you want me to do it again, you will have to now keep quiet and listen to me teach you about summoning, Ning said. Oh, can I play with Aki first? She asked. After we are done with the lesson, Ning said, not budging even the slightest bit. Okay, the princess said dejectedly. Ning brought out the umbrella from his storage and used it to shade Joanne and the princess from the afternoon sun. As for himself, he liked being in the sun as that only made him stronger. Do you know what we use to summon? Ning asked. No, the princess said. Princess, you do, Joanne said from the side. We learned this already. Huh? Oh right, spiritual energy, the princess said. Do you know where we can find the spiritual energy? Ning asked. Everywhere, the princess said confidently. Correct, but do you know where we find it the most? Ning asked. The pearls? The princess asked. I was actually going to say the ocean, but the pearl is technically the more accurate answer, Ning said with a somewhat amused expression. But do you know why the pearl has so much spiritual energy? Joanne looked confused. Even she didn't know that answer, no one did as far as she understood. Teacher, what are you teaching her? She asked. I'm starting from the basics, Ning said. But, how would she know why pearl has so much spiritual energy? She asked. Do you not know? Ning asked. He had learned the information from the system, so he didn't know what was prevalent information and what was lacking. Do you? Joanne asked. Joanne, let the teacher speak. I need to finish this lesson fast so I can play with Aki, she said. Yes, of course, she gave up in the end. So, here's the thing. There are very, very, very small sands in the water, and they carry spiritual energy. Which is why there is so much spiritual energy in the water compared to the air, Ning said. Oh. The princess made an understanding face even though Ning was sure she was doing it just to get done with the lesson. He had realized halfway through that what he was teaching was a bit too advanced for the princess, but he still continued it now that he had started it. Besides, Joanne could learn something from it anyway. So, the ocean has these small sand in the water, right? And then we have the spiritual oysters. These oysters live in the ocean and they drink the water. When they do, they purify it and put aside any of those small sand that they find. Those sands that are responsible for keeping spiritual energy are then slowly accumulated until they get mixed with the pearl the oysters make and become spiritual pearls, Ning said. So how spiritual energy appears in our surroundings, Ning said. Now you need to understand how we can use it. Spiritual energy can only be used to connect two spirits, Ning said. It can only be used to connect two different things and form a bond between them. That is why people that use spiritual energy are all called bondforgers, Ning said. Bondforger? The princess asked, having never heard these words before. Yes, bondforger, Ning said. It's unlikely that you've heard this word before as we are usually known as a summoner. Summoner. The princess cheered. That's what I am going to be soon. Yes, Ning said with a smile. If you take into heart everything I teach you here, you will become one of the greatest summoners out there. So if I swim in the ocean, I can get stronger? The little girl asked. Yes, Ning said, but not until you start forming a bond. Let me get a beast for you to bond. Ning jumped off from the octopus head and into the ocean. He looked around for a bit and found a very young fish that was barely at rank 1. He caught the fish in a bubble of water and floated it up to the octopus head. Wow, teacher, you can fly? The little girl was amazed. You can too once you start being able to form bonds, Ning said. Here, try and tell this guy to follow you and in exchange, you will give it all of your spiritual energy. This guy? The princess cocked her head to the side to look at the weak little fish. I don't like this guy. I want a big monster like OCCY. You need to be big to have a big monster like OCCY. For a small princess like you, this fish suits best, Ning said. Now try and send your spiritual energy to this guy and say you want to control it in return for all your spiritual energy. Okay, the little girl said as she closed her eyes. What do I do now? Let your spiritual energy out, Ning said. Okay, the girl said and waited for a bit. What's my spiritual energy? Ning sighed. Try and feel it a power in your body. You should feel it, he explained. The princess tried but there was no way she could feel spiritual energy in a single day after all. I can't, the princess grumbled. Am I not good at summoning? No, you're fine. Everyone takes time. I needed to wait until I was very old before I could even summon my first beast, Ning said. Really, I am going to beat you then, teacher. I will try again, she said. The princess continued trying but to no avail. Ning saw her confidence deteriorating so he let her play with the octopus for a while. At the same time, he answered a few of her questions. Why is it that I have to bond with something in front of me when you can summon something from far away? She asked. You can try and summon something from far away too, but it's easier to bond with something that is right in front of you, Ning said. Teacher is right in front of me. What if I bond with teacher? Can I get teacher to do whatever I want? Ooh, I can play with Aki all the time if I can do that, the girl said. The maid at the side hid her smile and let her princess dream a little. Unfortunately, Janice, you cannot bond with a human. You can only bond with that which is not human, Ning said. Why not? I want to play with OCCY, she said. That's just how it is. You cannot bond with something that is the same as you. If you are a human, you cannot bond with another human, Ning said. What if I was a big monster like OCCY? Could I then bond with teacher? She asked. Yes, you could. If you were an octopus like OCCY, then the only thing you could not bond with would be another octopus, Ning explained. Oh, the little girl said. All right, let's return back for today. Your father must be worried right now, Ning said. Huh? So fast? I don't wanna, the princess said. Princess, it's time for you to eat something and start your other studies, Joanne said. Those are boring. I want to summon monsters, the princess grumbled. Do you want me to tell that to your mother? Joanne asked. The princess suddenly closed her mouth and didn't say another word. Ning was surprised at how easily Joanne got her to stop her tantrum. Joanne, you meanie, the princess started sulking just then. All right, time to return, Ning said. Say goodbye to OCCY. OCCY is going? She asked. Yes, he has to go, Ning said. Where will he go back to? Does OCCY have a home? Can I meet him again? She asked. Don't worry. OCCY lives close by on the other side, Ning said. And if you're a good little girl, I will let you meet her too. Okay, the princess said reluctantly. You can go back now, Ning told the octopus, who seemed reluctant to leave as well. A summoning circle appeared deep within the waters, and in a flash of bright light, the octopus disappeared. Ah! The princess cried as she suddenly went into freefall. The same was true for Joanne, but she had somehow already twisted her body enough to get next to the princess and grab her. She embraced her tightly as they were about to reach the water. Just before they splashed, however, Ning caught them both with his telekinesis and brought them high into the air. Sorry about that. I might have stared directly into the light for a bit there, Ning said as they came closer. Ha 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 ha. Do it again, do it again. The princess started laughing all of a sudden. Okay, Ning said and took her from Joanne. Then in a single throw, he sent her 10 meters high into the air. Ah! The princess shouted as she came down, but Ning caught her softly again. Again, the princess said. No, it's time we return now, Ning said. He turned towards Joanne and grabbed her by the shoulder. In the next moment, Joanne found herself standing on the beat near the palace. We're back! The princess shouted. My daughter! The king ran up to them as they had been waiting for him all this time. Are you okay? The king asked her. Father, the teacher is amazing, the princess started saying. You aren't hurt? He continued asking. Why would I be hurt? She asked. Listen, the teacher said that I will be able to summon big monsters very soon. I will get to play with them then, right? The king realized that his daughter was fine, and only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Ning returned back to the arena where he was staying and went to the cafeteria. Safandra wasn't anywhere to be found, so he had to eat his meal alone. He would have probably gotten to eat back at the palace, but since everyone was so worried about the princess, they just let him go. Ning sighed as he ate the piece of fish in his place. Fish again, he thought. Being a world with only islands, the cuisine of the world mostly revolved around fish. Can't they get some chicken or something sometimes? Just because this is cheap, sigh, he shook his head as he ate. Hey, I need someone to help me build some houses. Can anyone help me? Someone spoke from way behind Ning. Ning didn't respond and saw no one in the room respond either. He continued eating his mediocre fish. However, he was too fed up with the fish, so he simply created some chicken instead and ate it. He went back to his room afterward and very quickly fell asleep. Joanne walked through the dark corridors of the palace late at night as she walked towards an underground room at the bottom of the beach. The room was studded all around with tiny little pearls that stole spiritual energy from the water that flowed right above them. In the center was a woman that sat there reading a book as her body naturally absorbed the spiritual energy that was pulled in. Due to the spiritual pearls never being full, the light there was very dim. Still, the thousands of pearls helped fully illuminated the room. There was a knock on the door and the woman finally stopped reading for once. Come in, she said, and the door opened. Joanne walked in and suddenly got on one knee. Your Highness, you called for me? Asked Joanne. The woman said softly. I heard there was an incident today regarding my daughter's teacher. Do you have any information for me? Yes, Your Highness, she said. Oh, there was information that you saw fit to hide? Go on, tell me, the woman said with an intrigued face. This man, this teacher of your daughter's that your husband found. He's incredibly powerful, Joanne said. Oh, how powerful? The queen asked. For one thing, he is absolutely a rank 6 summoner, if not more. The monster he summoned today was also fully listening to him despite it being so strong, Joanne said. Well, those are impressive, but not particularly much, especially the monster thing. Anyone can get a monster to follow their commands so long as they are ready to give up a lot of spiritual energy that they won't gain back for a while, the queen said. That's the thing, Mistra. I mean, Your Highness. Even after summoning the beast, he kept using other skills that are hard to come by without summoning multiple beasts. He could control objects with thoughts, he could travel to a faraway location not just by himself, but also the people and beasts around him. He could fly in the air without worry, and finally, he also had quite a lot of strength, Joanne said. I heard about the last part, the queen said. Apparently he won against my husband and everyone in a test of strength. Being able to summon so many powers, just what kind of monster is he? What should I do, Your Highness? Joanne asked. Check just how strong he is for now. Aside from that, we need a definite answer on what his character is like. Whether he is trustworthy or not. We don't need people that we can't trust, now do we? The queen said. Then I will start testing him, Joanne said. You will do no such thing. Just do what you've been doing until now. As for the teacher, only look at him from the sideline, the queen said. I see, Joanne said. I will do that then, Your Highness. Joanne stood and turned to leave. Wait, before you leave. Can you give me a full pearl? You have some, right? The queen asked. Yes, Your Highness. Joanne brought out a glowing pearl that was brighter than all the other pearls around her. Here. Joanne simply flicked the pearl from in between her thumb and index finger. The pearl shot out like a bullet from a gun, but the queen caught it in midair easily and looked at it. Thank you. You may go now, she said. Joanne nodded and returned back to her fake task of being a maid to the princess, and the real task of being her guard. One that wouldn't hesitate to kill any enemies that would come for her mistress' daughter. The queen looked at the pearl slowly losing light as it was absorbed by her. Well, at least my speed is still fast, she thought. However, even after the pearl lost its spiritual energy, the queen still felt empty. That was what she had been feeling for a very long time now. Ever since she had been poisoned and her legs mangled, she was forced to stay in this situation where she couldn't move from her location and had to stay in one place until someone came to get her. The reason she needed spiritual energy was to give it to this beast of hers whose powers she had summoned. She had promised it that she would give it her spiritual energy until it reached the next rank. The beast in turn promised her to heal her leg and body. It wouldn't be long now, only a few months before the day would come when she would have her legs back. After that, she would have to train a bit to go back to being the same way she was in the past. Then, she would attack her enemies, those that made her waste so many years in this backwater city. However, her enemies were strong and she needed people for that. Fortunately for her, it seems she had found the perfect person to ask for help. A teacher, huh? I can rope him in easily, the queen thought and went back to reading her book. Ning returned back to the palace to teach the little princess more about summoning. The princess wanted to fly for a bit, so Ning took her on a tour of the sky. Wow, I can see the city. Can we go to the city? She asked. No, you can go with Joanne after you are done learning for today, Ning said and brought her down. Ah, the girl was dejected a bit. I want to fly like you too. You will, Ning said. I want to ride OCCY again, she said. Not for a long while, Ning said. You need to be a good girl and learn for now. When your hair color changes to red or orange, I will let you play with OCCY. What if it is green? She asked. Green? Sure, that's better, Ning said. Yay. I can become just like a mother, the little princess celebrated. Your mother has green hair? Ning asked. Yes, she said. Then as her daughter, you need to have green hair too, Ning said and started teaching her again. As sensing spiritual energy would take time, he wanted to teach her about how summoning worked exactly. He told her about how you could summon the beasts, or just summon their powers. He told her how summoning changed one's hair color and how that affected a person's summoning when the entire beast didn't come. Are you summoning a beast right now too? The girl asked. Is that why you can fly? Yes, Ning said. I'm summoning a beast's powers which help me fly. Why not just call the entire beast and make it fly you? She asked. That's inconvenient, Ning said. If the beast is here and I want to fly, I will have to tell it to lift me, fly me up, then fly me somewhere. It's annoying, right? Maybe, the princess said, but aren't you not getting to fly very fast, teacher? Huh? What do you mean? Ning asked. Well, you said red hair is bad, right? She asked. Ah, yes. My red hair is indeed making it hard to use all the powers of the beast's skills, Ning said. Then why not just summon the monster? She asked. Well, sometimes the monster doesn't want to come, but you still need their power, so you just have to accept their skill, Ning said. Why won't they come? She asked. Well, there are a few reasons, Ning said. First of all, as the beast becomes stronger and have more spiritual energy, they started getting more intelligent. So, at some point, they just don't want to go all the way to some other place to fight for some random human when they can just stay where they are and just give away their skills, Ning said. While some start to believe that what the humans give them in exchange for summoning just isn't worth it for them, Ning said. Not worth it? She asked. Yes, beasts require a lot of spiritual energy to increase their rank, so they just don't think the little energy they will get is worth it to go all the way there, Ning said. Also, humans get quite cheap with their energy once they reach a higher rank, Ning said. Cheap with energy? What does that mean? The princess asked. Do you remember what I told you to say when I asked you to bond with the fish? Ning asked. No, the princess said. Didn't I tell you to say that you would give the beast all your spiritual energy? Ning asked. Yes, the princess said. Well, humans don't do that. Why they get strong. Instead, they say they will give just a little bit of their energy, Ning said. What? No beast will come to them that way, will they? The princess asked. Stupid humans. They aren't exactly stupid for doing so, Ning said. But they don't even use their spiritual energy to summon. Cheap humans, she said. That's not their fault really, Ning said. You will understand as you grow stronger, but at some point, it will take a really long time to fill your body with all the spiritual energy, so you need to be careful of what you spend. Really? But they are still cheap, right? The princess asked. Sigh. Yes, they are, Ning said. There was no point in telling any of this to a 6-year-old girl, was there? After a while, Ning started having her focus her mind on her spiritual energy, but the energetic princess kept getting distracted and another day ended without any result. A few more days passed with Ning teaching the princess fruitlessly. The easy 5,000 feet he wanted to make was now turning into one of the hardest tasks he had done in a while. The day came for Ning's next match in the arena. This was the match that he himself had challenged. As for the one where he was challenged, that wouldn't happen for a while. Ning's opponent was an above-average fighter with a good ratio of wins and losses. She summoned a giant bird to fight him, while Ning simply summoned a cat-sized spider. Ning himself was surprised when the spider came out, but given his demands, this was a very strong beast for sure. Begin. The referee said. The bird immediately took to the sky while the spider simply watched it fly around with all of its 4 giant eyes and 4 smaller eyes. White webs oozed out from the spider's behind, and instead of pooling around on the floor, it started flying up towards the sky. The spider had full control of its webs as if it was its own legs as long as it was attached to its own body. The bird flew around to evade it, but the spider caught it very quickly. Once it was caught, it couldn't fly anymore and fell to the ground with a loud crash. The bird disappeared and Ning was pronounced the victor. Once the spider disappeared too, Ning went to get his earnings. Ning earned nearly 2,000 pearls from the match he had just had. That was a good amount considering people would also bet on him quite a bit in this match where it wasn't well known who the winner would be. Once done, he went to meet up with Safandra to have some lunch. She was getting harder to meet now that he had a job and she was off doing her own thing. They sat down by the cafeteria to eat some food. How's your tutoring going? She asked. Fine, I would say. It's annoying that I have to teach a 6-year-old kid, but I'm having fun too I guess, Ning said. How about you? How are your studies going? You done with the book? Oh yeah, that history book, I'm done with it. I need some other book, but maybe not right now. I want to finish learning the language first, she said. Sure, that works too, Ning said. Oh right, I've come across some problems, Safandra said. What's up? Ning asked. So, I've been keeping my pearls in my storage right, but it keeps leaking energy, she said. Yeah, sorry I can't help you with that. Unless I can make the time stop, it will continue leaking, Ning said. No, I'm fine with it leaking. The problem is that now that it has leaked, the value of my pearls has halved, she said. I need to get them recharged. Oh, yeah, you can do it by handing the pearls over to the groups that handle this business, Ning said. You should get fully charged pearls back in just a day or two. Yeah, well I know that, and I tried it, but there's a problem with that too. 2 problems actually, she said. What's wrong? Ning asked. Well, first of all, I'm too rich, she said. I have nearly 50,000 pearls from my 2 matches and the ones that I bet on you. So, if I were to just give it over to the groups, they could just take it and run away. Right, 50,000 is enough for them to start a new life somewhere, and if they distribute it, it would be annoying to go get it, Ning said. Right? But that's less of a problem compared to the next one. Apparently, for recharging pearls they charge quite a bit, she said. Oh, how much? Ning was curious to hear about the cost as he hadn't interacted with such groups yet. They take exactly 1% of what you want to be recharged, she said. So, they want 500 pearls, yes, she said. Sheesh, that's enough to buy your own small boat and drag yourself through the ocean overnight, Ning said. Yeah, so do you have any idea? Maybe you can just, I don't know, poof and have it be recharged? She asked. Ning chuckled a bit. It doesn't work like that. If it did, I wouldn't just make dull pearls, now would I? I guess? Then do you have any suggestions? I don't mind having dull pearls. I would really like it if I had ones with double the value, she said. Ning thought for a moment. I might have some way, he said. Give me your storage ring. Huh? Here. She handed it over to him. I will try and see if my idea works, Ning said. Damn, Janice is going to be super happy about this. Who's Janice? Safandra gave a quizzing look. Why do you want to know? Jealous? Ning asked with a smile. Of course not, Safandra said. Well, you shouldn't be. It's the princess's name. She's been bothering me to go to the ocean for a while, so she's going to get her wish today. I just need to ask the king for permission, Ning said. After finishing their meal, Safandra returned back to her room, while Ning went over to the palace. By now, the guards were already familiar with Ning as the princess's tutor, so they simply let him walk in without much checking. Once inside, Ning went over to the servants to try and get an audience with the king or someone who could approve of something. I'll see what I can do, the servant said and walked away. Ning waited for a while for the servant to return. After a while, the servant returned back and asked him to follow him. Ning nodded and walked with him to the back of the palace. There were a few ladies standing by a porch with a head full of orange and blonde hair. In the center was a woman in a chair. She had strong facial features, while also looking delicate at the same time. There was a subtle smile on her face the entire time that only widened more when she saw Ning approaching. Ning saw her face fully and realized that she looked similar to Janice. The head full of green hair gave away her identity immediately. The servant that took him here walked away, leaving Ning alone. Ning walked over to the woman in the chair and bowed a little. I'm glad to finally meet you, Your Highness, he said. You know me? I'm surprised, the queen couldn't help but say. Your daughter speaks of you quite a lot, Ning said. I hear she does do that. So, tell me, why are you here when you should be teaching my daughter? She asked. Well, I was hoping to ask your permission for something, Ning said. I wish to take your daughter for a ride around the ocean again. I caused quite a commotion last time, so I want permission to do so this time. You wish to take my daughter on a ride along the ocean? In what, may I ask? She asked. Any sea beast I can summon, Ning said. There's nothing particular in my mind yet. The queen thought for a bit. Sure, why not, but under one condition. Oh, what condition might that be? Ning got curious. The queen gave a genuine smile. I get to come with you too. You want to come with us too? Ning looked at her with a weird expression. Is that wrong? Do I not get to see what kind of man my daughter's tutor is? She asked. Oh, no you can. I mean, yes you can come with us. I was just surprised you know. I thought a queen would be too busy to just go around the sea, Ning said. I am not that kind of queen. My husband handles everything, so I am rather free to do whatever I want. The queen smiled at him. I will see you in a bit then. Okay. I will wait until you give me the permission to summon. Ning bowed toward the queen and walked away. The queen watched him with careful eyes with a mysterious smile on her face. Ning couldn't help but wonder why that smile. Ning went over to Janice and gave her the good news. I get to see OCCY. Yeah, she celebrated when she heard him. Wait, I don't know if it will be OCCY or not. I'm not sure yet. I will try OCCY, but you will have to do with other beasts too, okay? Ning asked. What? The princess exclaimed. But I want OCCY. I can't guarantee OCCY. No, she shouted. I want OCCY. I want OCCY. 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 She started throwing tantrum all of a sudden. Joanne walked up and tried to calm her down, but she kept shouting about wanting to see the octopus. Janice, You don't want friends other than OCCY? Ning asked. Other friends? The princess finally calmed down. Yes, there are so many other beasts out there. Do you really want to be friends with just OCCY? Ning asked. No, I want to be friends with all of them, she said. Okay then, let's go. Ning took the two girls over to the beach where the queen was already sitting in a chair with two women by her side. Is everything ready? Ning asked her. Not yet, we're waiting for the captain to come, the queen said. Not long after, one of the ships sailed up to them and the captain dropped from there into the water. He swam up to the shore and knelt beside the queen. Your Highness, what orders do you have? He asked. At the same time, he constantly side-eyed Ning. The captain and others just like him were angry at Ning for humiliating them a week ago. Grabbing the princess, summoning big beasts, and disappearing from right under their nose had left them feeling rather angry at Ning and at themselves. They were fortunate the person they considered an enemy was an ally. If he was not, they would be in a lot of trouble at the moment. In 5 minutes, my daughter's tutor will summon another beast. Let your colleagues know that everything is okay, the queen told him. Again. The captain looked to the side. Is there a problem? The queen narrowed her eyes. No, your highness. Your orders shall be fulfilled, the captain spoke. Good, you may return. The captain nodded and jumped back into the water before grabbing onto a rope ladder and climbing to the top. The ship then sailed away and entered the defense formation it had separated from. Come here, child, the queen called her daughter. Mother, the princess timidly walked up to her mother. How are your studies going? Are you being a good girl? The queen asked. I am doing good, mother, the princess said. Ning's eyes narrowed at the conversation between the two. It was so stiff, and the princess was so scared of her own mother. What's going on here? He wondered. Okay, go back. The queen let the princess walk away after a few more questions. Then, she stared into the ocean. Do you think of me as a cold mother? The queen asked. Yes, Ning said without hesitation, but I also think you're doing it on purpose. Quite perceptive of you, the queen said. Yes, I'm purposefully being cold and sometimes even cruel to my own daughter. She is a princess and will definitely grow to be spoiled and maybe even rude. For that to not happen, I believe she needs to be scared of at least one of her parents. My husband could never be that. He's free-spirited and strong, but he can't be cruel. He doesn't have the heart to scold his own daughter. Due to that reason, I needed to step in and be the force that kept her in line. I hope you won't judge me too harshly for that, the queen turned to look at him. If that's what we are talking about, then I believe you are being a bit too cold towards your daughter. Yes, keeping her in line is good, but she doesn't need a scary mother to do that. A loving mother can keep her from being spoiled all the same. Or at least that's what I believe, Ning said. But hey, what do I know? I don't have any children. The queen chuckled. You are too young to have children, she said. Now go summon. I wish to see this monster of yours. Okay, Ning said and closed his eyes. A second later, a massive white light appeared from beneath the ocean. The two ladies next to the queen suddenly brought out an umbrella and opened it while Joanne did the same for the princess. The water erupted and splashed all around them as the umbrella was barely able to protect the two royals from the water. When the water no longer rained down from above, they got rid of the umbrella and looked at the beast that had appeared in front of them. Floating atop the water was a massive blue-shelled turtle with water flowing through its shell's crevices. The shell itself was wide and accommodating, so there wasn't anything to worry about. Ning turned to the ground with a smile on his face and said, "Shall we leave then?" The queen stared in surprise at the beast that floated in the ocean in front of her. Rank 7, she thought. That's definitely rank 7. How is he summoning such strong beasts? Is he giving away all of his spiritual energy? That was the only way this could be done at all after all. Wait for a second, I have something to do first. Ning turned after speaking and created a massive thin and sturdy metal net. How did you create that? The queen asked him as it didn't make sense. He should have already lost all of his energy to the other beast. How was he still capable of creating something? Oh, I didn't create it, Ning said. I simply took out what was in my storage. The queen was even more flabbergasted. His storage? How the hell does he have storage going on top of summoning this massive beast? How strong is he? Ning proceeded to take out his and Safandra's pearls and filled them into the metal net. Once he made sure there was no way the pearls would escape, he jumped into the ocean and swam his way to the turtle. The queen watched as Ning tied the metal around the turtle's neck like a noose. He couldn't see anywhere else that would be better. The turtle's skin was too thick to feel it anyway. Ning swam back to the shore in what felt like record time for the queen, and she couldn't help but wonder if he had any other skills summoned as well. "Let's go," Ning said and went on to grab the princess's hand. He then walked over to the queen and grabbed her wrists too. "What are you doing?" she asked with a panic in her voice. "Taking you to the turtle," Ning said. The queen saw a giant turtle in her vision floating in the ocean, as well as her two guards to the side that was about to grab onto Ning for overstepping his boundary. However, in the next second, the scenery changed as she now gazed into the open ocean from high in the air where she could see the many battleships roaming the sea. Her eyes slowly drifted downwards and she finally that she was sitting on the turtle. "How, mother, isn't teacher awesome?" the princess asked her mother with a jovial tone in her voice. She jumped on the blue shell with excitement in her voice as she looked around the ocean. Mother, look, the ocean is so big from here," the princess said. "Your Highness, are you okay?" Joanne left the princess's side and went to grab the queen before pulling her to a more comfortable place on the shell. "What's wrong?" Ning asked when he saw her pale face. "Nothing, I'm fine," the queen said, clearly lying through her teeth. "You can tell me if you are scared of height, I can take you back," Ning said. No, I'm really fine," she said. "Okay," Ning said and went on to make sure the princess was properly settled. The turtle was so big that the shell was about 30 meters in width, meaning about 10 meters of it was on the top that was flat enough to sit at. Once the princess was settled, Ning noticed that Joanne was sitting by the queen's side more than she was by the princess. "Are you sure you are all right?" Ning asked her. "I can really drop you off if you aren't." No, she's just here for me because of my leg issues. You don't have to worry about it as we won't be walking at all," she said. "Leg issues?" Ning got curious. "What kind?" "It's nothing. My legs just don't work is all." "Don't worry, I won't bother you," the queen said. "Oh, what's wrong with your leg?" "I'm a doctor too, you can tell me," Ning said. "A doctor?" The queen hesitated. There was no chance whatsoever that the young man in front of her was a doctor, but she couldn't say that outright in case she offended her. She still needed to leave a favorable impression on him now that she was absolutely sure she wanted to recruit him for her own organization. "Yes, I'm a doctor," Ning said and walked up to her. The queen hesitated a bit while Joanne simply watched by the sideline as she was ordered. "May I?" Ning asked. "Okay," the queen said reluctantly just to not offend him. Ning slowly reached out to the queen's legs and pulled it out. His eyes widened a bit when he saw some thin, blackened legs as if they belonged to a burned victim that also happened to have anorexia. "What did this?" he asked with surprise. "Poison," the queen said. "I see," Ning said as he learned more about the leg. "Must be quite the devastating poison then. How long has it been? 7 years? 8? The queen gave a surprised look. "Yes, 7 years," she said. "How did you know?" "I told you, I'm a doctor," Ning said. "You did, didn't you?" the queen said quietly. "If you're done looking at my leg, can we leave now? I don't want my daughter to be tired from being so excited before we even leave." "Oh, sure," Ning said. "Just one moment." Ning placed his hands on both her legs and in an instant a white light glowed from his hands. The light entered the dark legs as it started cleaning the blackness from the inside. The queen watched in absolute disbelief as her black legs slowly got back their skin color as well as their muscle mass as the blackness disappeared. When the light passed through all her body, there was no more problem left in her at all. "Here," Ning gave her his hands to grab onto and pulled her up. The queen got up suddenly and stumbled a bit, but Ning caught on to her and didn't let her fall. The queen then balanced herself on the shell and tears slowly dripped down the side of her cheeks. I can walk again." The queen's feet trembled on the shaky shell, but she still managed to stand up on her own. It's really happening," she spoke out loud in disbelief as for the first time in many years, she saw herself stand up. "Missed, Your Highness, are you sure? You can walk?" Joanne was surprised. "Mother." The princess didn't understand what was going on, so she started to worry a little. "I can walk, honey," she told her daughter. Suddenly, she felt something break inside her. The bond, she thought. The bond she had made with this strong beast was now broken. From the queen to the beast, the condition was to forever provide the beast with spiritual energy until it would go up in rank. The queen had made such a vicious bond knowing that it would take her years considering the beast was already at rank 7 when she bonded it. But she had to do it for the sake of healing her leg. From the beast to the queen, the condition of the bond was that it would heal her legs. Now that Ning had done the job for the beast, there was no more condition remaining and the bond collapsed on itself. The queen felt a backlash, a hit to her spirit that only happened when you broke the condition of your bond. However, the queen didn't even care that she got a little backlash as she felt the spiritual energy all around her slowly enter her and not disappear somewhere else. She could finally gather spiritual energy on her own. How did you heal me?" the queen asked Ning. The queen was quite good at handling her emotion, so she moved aside her feeling for what she thought was more important. "It's just another summon of mine, don't worry," Ning said. Even he was starting to realize a problem with saying everything was a summon. People would start to get suspicious soon. He needed to change the topic. "Since you are fine, Your Highness, let us start moving." Ning ordered the turtle and suddenly it started moving forward. The battleships moved aside as the giant turtle makes its way through them. The captains couldn't help but look in awe at the size of the beast. Ning didn't show any expression on his face, but deep inside he couldn't help but laugh at the people's reaction. Especially because he knew just how useless this turtle was. The turtle was strong when it came to defense thanks to its thick skin and thicker shell, but it wasn't a fighter at all. All it could do if something attacked it was endure it. As for the people on top of it, it couldn't care less about protecting them. Not that it could even if it did care. Ning hadn't summoned it because of its fighting capabilities, so that wasn't a problem for him. The turtle was surprisingly fast in the water as it roamed the sea. The little princess shouted excitedly and pointed at any fish or sea beast that came to the surface. Ning couldn't help but smile every time. After a few minutes, he started teaching her again. The queen watched curiously as she wondered what he taught her and nodded to herself when she realized he was teaching her to feel the spiritual energy and summon something. Over 2 hours passed in such a way. The queen was happy to be out of her small cave and freely enjoy the outside world for the first time in a long time. She was so happy that she didn't even care that there was someone around. She tried walking a few times, but her legs didn't work like they used to before. Just then she heard a commotion from the group. She turned around to look at Ning and the others and saw them celebrating. "What's going on?" she asked. Mother, I can feel it. I can feel the spiritual energy," the little princess shouted. "Really? Come here, my child." The queen gave a deep hug to her daughter that left the princess surprised. Her mother never showed her love this way. "I'm really proud of you," the queen said. The smile on the princess's face could not be any wider. The queen heard a splash and turned her head to see that Ning was no longer there. "What happened? Where did he go?" she asked Joanne. "Most likely to get a beast for the princess," Joanne answered. Ning returned not long after with a small octopus that was blue and green in color, but was actively changing into orange to match the light of the setting sun. "Come on, let's try bonding with Oxy's friend, okay?" Ning said as he placed the octopus on one of the crevices in the turtle's shell where water flowed through constantly. "What do I do now?" the princess asked. "Now, you make a bond," Ning explained. "Feel your spiritual energy and try to push it towards the octopus. Then, say the words of your bond. You remember the words, right?" "Yes." The princess crouched in front of the octopus and tried to do as she was told. For a while, she didn't feel anything, but then she felt the spiritual energy again and sent it out of her body towards the octopus. "Be controlled by me and in exchange you can have all the spiritual energy in my body," she said. The tiny octopus couldn't understand the words of course, but the intent was apparent to it. It would get so much spiritual energy at once that would go towards its rank. It happily accepted the condition of the bond. The princess felt something change in her. At the same time, something else changed externally. The black hair the princess had slowly started fading as if it were being influenced by the surrounding. Slowly, it went from mild to deep red. The princess watched in shock at her own hair changing. "I did it?" she asked. "Yes, congratulations, Janice." Ning pat her head. "You're now a summoner." "Hooray!" The princess celebrated and so did the adults. "OCCY, move," the princess ordered the octopus. "He's OCCY too?" Ning asked. "They're all OCCY, she said without looking towards him. They watched the princess play with the beast for a while. The princess also watched the octopus do various things, but since it was only rank 1, it didn't have any elemental powers at all. After all, a beast only gained elemental powers once it reached rank 3. Why is my hair red? I want green hair like a mother, the princess grumbled a little. What? Your teacher here had red hair too. What's wrong with that? Ning asked. But you said red hair was bad, teacher, she said. Yes, I did. But I also said it won't matter to you now, didn't I? Just keep summoning and soon you will have your hair changed too. Look, ask Joanne how long it took for her hair to turn orange. Ask your mother too. Really, mother? The princess turned around. Yes, it took me many, many years before I could get green hair, the queen said. Me too, princess. I had to grow this old to have my orange hair. By the time you are as big as me, you will probably have blue hair, Joanne said. Blue hair is better? She asked. Didn't I teach you? Blue hair is better than green, Ning said. Okay, then I will get blue hair. The princess finally stopped feeling down. Then, she went back to playing with her octopus. The queen started asking simple questions to Ning about his background, which Ning evaded as much as he could. There were things about this world he believed he still didn't know about, and he didn't want to say something that made the queen more suspicious than she already was. So you are in the circle and in the arena? The queen asked. Yes, I use my time outside of arena to deal with the circle's quests, Ning said. The circle has rank 7 summoners now? The queen asked. Ning wasn't surprised to hear that question. After all, he had already seen that the queen was a rank 6 summoner too. Meaning she could easily tell what rank others were around her own rank. I'm still just a rank 5 for them. They don't have ways to confirm my rank yet, Ning said. How do you summon so many beasts at once, by the way? I'm curious, the queen asked. Oh, that's just double summoning. I found a particularly great beast that has many different kinds of skills and allows me to lend them for a really cheap price, Ning said. It does? The queen was surprised. It must have really taken a liking towards you. But then, why is your hair still red? It should have changed long ago. I don't think it likes me. It's more like the beast is bored and just does what it wants, Ning hurriedly said. Damn it, I need to change my hair color soon or it will cause more problems. But still Your Highness, look, Joanne interrupted her to point in a certain direction. Both the queen and Ning turned their head to see a ship in the distance fighting against turbulent water. However, what was weird about the turbulent water was that it only appeared in a small area around the ship. The lots and lots of moving and splashes made it seem like the ship was fighting against the ocean when in fact it was stationary. Sea beasts. They're in trouble, Ning said as his vision enhanced to see what exactly was happening down there. What seemed like a fishing ship was surrounded by beasts all around. I'll be back, Ning said and immediately flew off in the boat's direction. He flew through the air at incredible speed and punched one of the big fishes that were hitting the ship. He went into the water and caught another fish by the tails and threw it out into the air where it flew far away in an arch before falling down into the ocean again. The other fishes and sea beasts started circling Ning. Ning looked at them and calmed himself before suddenly his body started buzzing loudly. His body was now producing sound at a frequency that fishes hated. He didn't keep it up for long, but only a few seconds to make the fishes scurry away. He wasn't in the mood to kill them, so he only sent them away. However, they would likely come back when they realized the annoying sound was gone. Ning jumped out of the water and directly onto the fishing boat. The fishes are gone. Start moving, he shouted, but he couldn't find the men. It turned out the men were huddled up in a room on the boat, waiting for the beasts to go away. Ning barged in and looked at them. The fishes are gone. Start moving, he ordered. Who? Doesn't matter. Move the ship now or they will return, Ning said. We can't, one of the fishermen spoke back. Why not? Ning asked. The anchor. It's stuck on something, he said. Really? Ning ran out and found the anchor chain and tried pulling it out. However, it was in fact firmly stuck on something. All right, I'll go in and get your anchor unstuck. Get ready to pull it after I give it a yank, Ning said and got ready to jump. No. A few of the men shouted at once. Ning stopped. What? He asked. A few of the men then immediately got to their knees and started praying something. That there might be the monster, one of the men said. Stop being superstitious, another man argued. No, I'm not. It's true, my grandfather saw it, the man then argued. Ning watched the men argue and sighed. He didn't have to wait for their permission. He jumped into the water and swam to the depths of the ocean to find the anchor stuck on a large rock that was firmly embedded in the ground. He punched a piece of the rock off and the anchor came unstuck. He then yanked on it and immediately the fisherman started pulling on it. Ning stood on the anchor and waited as he was pulled out of the water. The fisherman pulled up the anchor and immediately started moving. Ning jumped back onto the boat and looked around for people that were possibly injured. He helped a few of them when he noticed weird looks given in his direction. "What's up?" he asked the fishermen that were making weird glances. At the seafloor, was there no monster?" one of them asked. "Monster? If you mean sea beast, then there were a few but they didn't attack," Ning said. No, the monster you know." "The monster?" the fisherman asked. "I'm afraid I do not know what you mean," Ning said. "Either way, there was no monster. Your anchor was just stuck on some rock, that's all." "See? I told you there was no Galthymore," another person said. Galthymore? Ning wondered what they meant. He was about to ask the system what it was when the fisherman started freaking out again. "What happened?" Ning asked only to find them scared because of his turtle. "That's just my beast, don't worry," he said. The people took a while to calm down after hearing it, but they did. "By the way, how did you even get attacked by the beasts? Shouldn't you have some protection out in the sea?" Ning asked. "We do. He's our recruit from the summoning circle," they said, pointing to a young man at the end. Ning saw that he was rank 3 and got confused. "What happened to you, summon?" he asked the young man. I sent it to the depth to dislodge the anchor from whatever it was stuck on, but it seemed to have disturbed some of the beasts which came to attack us," the young summoner said.
"I see. Well, you did what you could. No need to feel down." Ning looked at the rest of the fishermen and then towards the sun that was halfway down the ocean.
"You guys should return now." Ning then jumped into the ocean and swam back to the turtle before climbing back onto the top. He shook himself a bit to get rid of some of the water, but overall he was still quite wet. "Are you okay? You were diving for quite some time," the queen asked. "Oh yeah, I'm fine. Nothing to worry about," Ning said. "What about those people? What was up with them?" the queen asked. "Just some beast attacks. Apparently, the summoner lost his summon, so the sea beast saw them as a hostile threat and came attacking. Meanwhile, their anchor was stuck, so they couldn't leave at all," Ning explained. "Oh, that must have been a traumatic experience for them," the queen said. "Being stranded in the sea, surrounded by beasts. I worry they would have died had you not been here." "Most likely," Ning said as he turned to look at the fishing boat that was already far away. "They likely won't fish for a while now because of their fear. Also, they were quite scared actually." Ning turned to the queen. "They kept speaking about something called Galthymore. Do you know what it is?" "Galthymore? The burning fish? It's a folktale around these parts of the ocean," the queen said. "The burning fish? I'm curious now." Ning urged her to explain some more about the fish. "Well, the story has been passed through many years over many generations, so I don't know how accurate it is, but here it goes," the queen started explaining. "The folktale speaks of a burning fish-like monster with many fins and tails that likes to dwell in the sea and kill passers-by. From time to time, the people around here go missing and they blame it on the monster. It's supposed to be a nearly forgotten tale, but because of the missing people recently the folktale has re-emerged and is making its way through the populace. Those people were probably scared that the monster was back and was going to attack them. The fear hasn't reached our kingdom yet, but the people that work in the sea are already speaking about it," the queen said. "A burning fish? That's a weird creature to think about," Ning said. "If it was burning, it couldn't be in the water. Maybe it was just glowing red or orange. Whatever it was, Ning would find out soon enough." The sun finally set and the sea turned dark. The clouds still burned bright orange, so Ning decided to return the people. "I think you guys should return back now. If I keep you here for any longer, your people might start to get worried," Ning said. The queen was about to protest when she realized he was right. She wanted to stay with him a little longer, learn more about his powers and what beast it was that he was connected to. But she also realized that if she was too desperate to have him join her group, that could backfire instead. Very badly at that too. Besides, she had just got her legs back, not to mention her spiritual energy. So, she needed to focus on that for a bit. She wondered how happy her stupid husband would be when he saw her walk into their bedroom tonight. The queen smiled and nodded. "Yes, let us return." The return journey would take about 2 hours for all of them to return, so the queen got herself comfortable on the blue shell and Ning grabbed the 3 of them and instantly teleported. "We're here," he said casually. The queen's new feet nearly gave away when she realized that she was back in the palace. "Ho how! But, it's so far away," she said as she looked around. "Your Highness." The two servants of hers that were supposed to help move her around immediately ran up to her. However, when they saw the queen stand on her own feet, they couldn't help but show a shocked expression. "I will return back, Your Highness," Ning said and disappeared suddenly. The queen had many things to say, but Ning was gone. "I need to get him," she thought. "He will be a monumental force for our cause if I can get him." Ning found pieces of metal broken off from the side of the spaceship. The fins the people had seen were giant metal arms of the spaceship, of which half of them had been destroyed already. The spaceship was far bigger in person than he could have imagined. It was cylindrical in shape with half of its outer arms around it. There was an opening at the back for the thrusters. The front of it was still under the sand. Once Ning pulled the entire spaceship from the sand, he teleported it onto a deserted island and put it there. He looked at it from top to bottom. The ship was so massive that perhaps 5 of those giant turtles he had summoned could fit into it. And that was after most of it had been destroyed. The spaceship he remembered seeing so majestic in his memory was now completely crushed on all sides. The glass screen on the front was fully broken in and water had completely filled the spaceship. Ning waited for the water to escape out, and when it did, he finally decided to go in. Ning had just stepped into the ship when he came face to face with a skeleton. "Holy shit!" he cried out as he backed off. He wasn't expecting to see dead people so soon. "Shit, of course, the crew must be dead if they fell in here," he thought to himself. He prepared himself and walked back in. He ignored the skeleton strapped onto the front seat, its clavicle and ribs broken due to the impact. The skeleton's head hung loosely to the side. Ning sighed and moved on forward. He saw a few more bodies strapped in seats behind them. Ning saw a giant hole on the other side of the ship that he hadn't seen before. Something had struck in from the side. "Is this before or after they fell?" Ning asked his system. "Less than a sea beast did that after they were submerged. Greater than. I would think a spaceship that is supposed to fly through space would be a little stronger," Ning said. "If a little water can crush it like this, what if they hit asteroids in space?" "Less than they did hit asteroids in space. That is why they're down here. Greater than."
"I see," Ning said. "Still, I can't believe the water crushed it so much."
"Less than the spaceship is designed to sustain pressure from the inside. They need to make sure the spaceship doesn't explode in the vacuum of space, and that's how it is designed. They are never designed to sustain force from the outside. Greater than. So a little water pressure and the whole thing gets crushed like a water bottle, huh?" Ning thought. Metal spikes rose from all around, glass shards littered the floor. The sand had made its way in and was now everywhere. Ning could even see a few fish bones that must have died in here. The walls of the spaceship were covered in moss and algae. He could see sea bugs crawling the side of it from time to time. Ning forced open some sort of door in the giant spaceship and went through to find a few things. This room was more or less protected by the beasts, but water, sand, bugs, and the algae had made their way through somehow. Most of the things in this room were unrecognizable as well. As he was thinking that, Ning came across something. He saw a bunch of rectangular metal boxes with moss all over them. Ning walked up to one of them and wiped the mess from the top. Suddenly, he saw a face through the now clean screen. "A person!" He cried out and quickly ripped open the metal lid. He reached in to grab the person and they were dead. "What? But they look so alive," Ning said to himself. The person in the chamber was a woman with long hair that had her eyes closed. There was some sort of tube that went through her nose and mouth while the rest of it was fully naked. Ning checked the pulse once again, but the person clearly was dead. Now that he looked at it, her skin was indeed turning pale. He then stood up and looked around him to find about a dozen or so more boxes like this one. He went through all of them, finding men and women in them. However, they were all dead. "System, what is going on?" he asked. These people were put to cryo sleep in these cryo chambers. It was supposed to freeze their body over the course of the time it took for a space voyage. However, due to the problems they faced, this room lost powers and they all ended up slowly thawing in the bottom of the ocean and thus died of suffocation. Such a horrible way to go, Ning thought. But why haven't their bodies rotten yet? Before they are put to cryo sleep, their body is regulated and frozen over a period of time. During this time, their breathing, heart, and even their brain stop functioning. Once their body loses all harmful gases and their cells stop developing further, the chamber is filled with non-reactive gas. So even after they're dead, they don't rot because their body never had anything to rot it, huh? Ning asked. The tubes were meant to quickly provide them with oxygen and food when they woke up, but with the system failure that never happened. I see, Ning sighed to himself. He started taking the people out of the chambers and brought them outside. He then brought the skeletons out too. Then, he started digging holes in the ground for all of the dead crew members of the spaceship. Once he was done, he started burying them one by one in the hole he had just dug up. Your deaths were tragic, but I hope you have reincarnated to somewhere better now. Ning prayed for them alone and put the dirt back into the graves. After that, it was time for him to learn about the spaceship itself. Ning found pieces of metal broken off from the side of the spaceship. The fins the people had seen were giant metal arms of the spaceship, of which half of them had been destroyed already. The spaceship was far bigger in person than he could have imagined. It was cylindrical in shape with half of its outer arms around it. There was an opening at the back for the thrusters. The front of it was still under the sand. Once Ning pulled the entire spaceship from the sand, he teleported it onto a deserted island and put it there. He looked at it from top to bottom. The ship was so massive that perhaps 5 of those giant turtles he had summoned could fit into it. And that was after most of it had been destroyed. The spaceship he remembered seeing so majestic in his memory was now completely crushed on all sides. The glass screen on the front was fully broken in and water had completely filled the spaceship. Ning waited for the water to escape out, and when it did, he finally decided to go in. Ning had just stepped into the ship when he came face to face with a skeleton. Holy shit! He cried out as he backed off. He wasn't expecting to see dead people so soon. Shit, of course, the crew must be dead if they fell in here, he thought to himself. He prepared himself and walked back in. He ignored the skeleton strapped onto the front seat, its clavicle and ribs broken due to the impact. The skeleton's head hung loosely to the side. Ning sighed and moved on forward. He saw a few more bodies strapped in seats behind them. Ning saw a giant hole on the other side of the ship that he hadn't seen before. Something had struck in from the side. Is this before or after they fell? Ning asked his system. I would think a spaceship that is supposed to fly through space would be a little stronger, Ning said. If a little water can crush it like this, what if they hit asteroids in space? I see, Ning said. Still, I can't believe the water crushed it so much. So a little water pressure and the whole thing gets crushed like a water bottle, huh? Ning thought. Metal spikes rose from all around, glass shards littered the floor. The sand had made its way in and was now everywhere. Ning could even see a few fish bones that must have died in here. The walls of the spaceship were covered in moss and algae. He could see sea bugs crawling the side of it from time to time. Ning forced open some sort of door in the giant spaceship and went through to find a few things. This room was more or less protected by the beasts, but water, sand, bugs, and the algae had made their way through somehow. Most of the things in this room were unrecognizable as well. As he was thinking that, Ning came across something. He saw a bunch of rectangular metal boxes with moss all over them. Ning walked up to one of them and wiped the mess from the top. Suddenly, he saw a face through the now clean screen. A person. He cried out and quickly ripped open the metal lid. He reached in to grab the person and they were dead. What? But they look so alive, Ning said to himself. The person in the chamber was a woman with long hair that had her eyes closed. There was some sort of tube that went through her nose and mouth while the rest of it was fully naked.
Ning checked the pulse once again, but the person clearly was dead. Now that he looked at it, her skin was indeed turning pale.
He then stood up and looked around him to find about a dozen or so more boxes like this one. He went through all of them, finding men and women in them, however, they were all dead. System, what is going on? He asked. Such a horrible way to go, Ning thought. But why haven't their bodies rotten yet? So even after they're dead, they don't rot because their body never had anything to rot it, huh? Ning asked. I see, Ning sighed to himself. He started taking the people out of the chambers and brought them outside. He then brought the skeletons out too. Then, he started digging holes in the ground for all of the dead crew members of the spaceship. Once he was done, he started burying them one by one in the hole he had just dug up. Your deaths were tragic, but I hope you have reincarnated to somewhere better now. Ning prayed for them alone and put the dirt back into the graves. After that, it was time for him to learn about the spaceship itself. Ning looked at the space drive. While the overall machinery in the room was in general called the space drive, he knew that when someone referred to it, they were referring to the glass cylinder that was inside it. The cylinder fit in his two hands as he twisted it to the right and took it out of the device. The top and bottom of the cylinder were made up of metal, while the walls were made up of clear glass. He expected to see something inside the space drive, its power source, but there was nothing there. You cannot create the power source? Ning asked. Ning continued looking through it. What is it? The power source, he asked the system. Space stone. What's a space stone? Ning asked. Have I seen one before? Can you create a mock version? Ning asked. A silver rock appeared in front of Ning and he caught it in his hand. He turned it around and checked. This is what it looks like, he asked. What? Will they just fly away if I don't keep them secure? Ning asked with a hint of a chuckle in his voice. Is that why they are found around black holes? Oh, is that why only these people around the black hole have figured out space travel? Ning asked. These people, the Federation as you said, what unique energy do they have? The space stone isn't energy, is it? Ning asked. Why? What does a black hole do? Ning asked. This again, Ning thought. How'd I gain more authority? Holy shish. Okay. Ning didn't know what to think. He had to look at a black hole. No, into it. That was going to be quite a hard task, seeing as he was nowhere close to one. The closest black hole is about 4,500 light years away. How the hell am I supposed to go that far? Ning thought to himself. Then, his eyes fell on the space drive. I need the space stone to run this thing. How the hell do I get it? He wondered to himself. He tried to think of a way, but he had no way of acquiring a space stone for himself at the moment. What? There is one. Where? Ning asked. The system teleported him deep underwater a bit further away from the crash site of the spaceship. Ning went through the sand and unearthed a lot of space drive, but only one of them even had anything. Ning frowned when he saw the drive with the space stone and teleported back into the ship. What the hell? He cursed as he looked at the cylinder in his hand. He shook it a bit, but he couldn't believe what he was seeing. This is just a speck of dust, isn't it? Are you sure this is a space stone? He asked. How far will this even get me? Ning asked. Ning paused. Wait, what? This little thing will get me that far? He was surprised. Really? This little thing? How? Ning asked. Ning was surprised to hear how far he could go with just a speck of it. If I were to use the space stone the size you showed me before, how far would I be able to go? He asked. Sigh, I really need that. Any idea how I can get one of such size? Ning asked. Oh, that's not a bad idea. How'd I do that? From the control station at the front? He asked. Ning placed the barely functional space drive back into the slot and left to go to the front. He quickly learned from the system how to use the spaceship and started sending a message. He thought for a moment and sent a simple message. Help. ZSS Unity 3 is down. Multiple crew members are dead. No way of returning. All right, that should do. Now if anyone happens to be in the area, they will come to help me, right? Ning said out loud. ZHOOM, what just happened? Ning looked around but saw nothing. Ning looked at the space drive. While the overall machinery in the room was in general called the space drive, he knew that when someone referred to it, they were referring to the glass cylinder that was inside it. The cylinder fit in his two hands as he twisted it to the right and took it out of the device. The top and bottom of the cylinder were made up of metal, while the walls were made up of clear glass. He expected to see something inside the space drive, its power source, but there was nothing there. You cannot create the power source? Ning asked. Ning continued looking through it. What is it? The power source, he asked the system. Space stone. What's a space stone? Ning asked. Have I seen one before? Can you create a mock version? Ning asked. A silver rock appeared in front of Ning and he caught it in his hand. He turned it around and checked. This is what it looks like, he asked. What? Will they just fly away if I don't keep them secure? Ning asked with a hint of a chuckle in his voice. Is that why they are found around black holes? Oh, is that why only these people around the black hole have figured out space travel? Ning asked. These people, the Federation as you said, what unique energy do they have? The space stone isn't energy, is it? Ning asked. Why? What does a black hole do? Ning asked. This again, Ning thought. How'd I gain more authority? Holy shish. Okay. Okay. Ning didn't know what to think. He had to look at a black hole. No, into it. That was going to be quite a hard task, seeing as he was nowhere close to one. The closest black hole is about 4,500 light-years away. How the hell am I supposed to go that far? Ning thought to himself. Then, his eyes fell on the space drive. I need the space stone to run this thing. How the hell do I get it? He wondered to himself. He tried to think of a way, but he had no way of acquiring a space stone for himself at the moment. What? There is one. Where? Ning asked. The system teleported him deep underwater, a bit further away from the crash site of the spaceship. Ning went through the sand and unearthed a lot of space drive, but only one of them even had anything. Ning frowned when he saw the drive with the space stone and teleported back into the ship. What the hell? He cursed as he looked at the cylinder in his hand. He shook it a bit, but he couldn't believe what he was seeing. This is just a speck of dust, isn't it? Are you sure this is a space stone? He asked. How far will this even get me? Ning asked. Ning paused. Wait, what? This little thing will get me that far? He was surprised. Really? This little thing? How? Ning asked. Ning was surprised to hear how far he could go with just a speck of it. If I were to use the space stone the size you showed me before, how far would I be able to go? He asked. Sigh, I really need that. Any idea how I can get one of such size? Ning asked. Oh, that's not a bad idea. How'd I do that? From the control station at the front? He asked. Ning placed the barely functional space drive back into the slot and left to go to the front. He quickly learned from the system how to use the spaceship and started sending a message. He thought for a moment and sent a simple message. Help. ZSS Unity 3 is down. Multiple crew members are dead. No way of returning. All right, that should do. Now if anyone happens to be in the area, they will come to help me, right? Ning said out loud. ZHOOM, what just happened? Ning looked around but saw nothing. Ning took the entire spaceship into his massive storage and teleported back on top of the blue turtle that was still roaming the ocean. Since there was nothing else to do besides wait, he decided to learn more about Space Stone. Can I use Space Stone on my own? Without the machines? Ning asked. Yes. You can use it as long as you pump some energy onto it to turn the stone back into space. Cool, Ning thought. So that must be how the space drive works then. Right, how exactly do I use it once I get the space out of the stone? You will require a skill to control it. However, there are better things you can do with a space stone than use it for travel, since you can teleport yourself and create portals. Better things? Ning got curious. You can use space stones to create storage artifacts that is accessible in all worlds, including ones without any unique energy. Oh, that's quite nice. But I don't need that, do I? Ning asked. Yes. However, with Space Stone, using the system's help, you can start a world in yourself. Ning thought for a moment about what the system said. However, nothing he could think of came close to comprehending the meaning of the sentence. Say that again, he asked of the system. Space Stone can help you create your own little world, where you are its master. Ning thought for a moment. I can do such a thing? He asked. Yes. Wait, how? Ning had a hard time wrapping his head around the concept. A world in himself. The system will take a space stone and use its space to create a world. However, it can only link up to one space stone, so you need to make sure the space stone you find is sufficient enough to house star systems. Otherwise, it will just be empty space. I would have never thought of something like that being possible. Can you tell me where the largest space stone is in this galaxy? You will have to find that on your own. The system can, however, point you in the direction of space stones regardless of their sizes. I know they're around the black hole. I don't need more information than that right now, unless there is one close by, he asked. The nearest one is about 200 light-years away. Thought so. Well, I guess I will just wait and see then, Ning said as a smile appeared on his face. Today was quite fruitful. Oh yeah, make sure to intercept any messages that come from outside. We might have to respond back. Understood. Ning spent the rest of the time simply drifting on top of the giant turtle, letting it take him wherever it wanted. At some point, he even fell asleep. Bang! A loud noise awakened Ning from his sleep as the shockwave pushed him off of the turtle. Ning barely woke up in time and managed to grab onto one of the crevices of the shell to keep himself from falling to the ground. He then quickly climbed back on top of the turtle and looked around. When he did, he couldn't help but be shocked. Nearly 30 different battleships were surrounding the turtle. They made multiple circles of defense and all had their cannon pointed at them. The hell? Ning looked around and saw men in white and red uniforms, pointing their guns at him. They were ready to fire at a moment's notice. Summoner, who are you? And why are you in our country's territory? A man with a thick mustache asked with a gun in his hand. Ning immediately raised his hands. Please don't shoot. I'm not an enemy, he said. My name is Ning. I didn't come to your country's territory on purpose. I had simply let my beast free rein, that's all. Are you saying it's just a coincidence that we're meeting you here today? The man asked. Yes. That is precisely what I'm saying, Ning said with a smile. It was good meeting people who understood easily. Do you think me for an idiot? The man asked. This man didn't seem to be one that understood easily. I'm not lying, sir, Ning said. A gunshot ran at the same time and hit the turtle's shell a couple of meters away from him. You appear here on the same day after our prince is assassinated. Do you really think we will believe whatever you say? Another man asked from another ship. What? Ning was confused. System, give me some information. Ning learned that he was currently in the ocean territory of the Kingdom of Yorshan. It was a kingdom about the same size as Darius, if all of Darius's 10 islands were combined together. The king of this kingdom had been dead for some time and the queen had been handling the kingdom until the crown prince was old enough to take over. However, a month before his coronation, last night to be precise, the prince was murdered while in his sleep. The young man who was barely 15 appeared to have both drowned and burned to death at the same time. That's just horrible, Ning thought when he got the description of the corpse. Who could do such a thing? Just as Ning questioned, the system answered. An assassin, huh? Who employed her? Ning thought. Another gunshot and this time the bullet flown past his ears, barely hitting him. In fact, the man was indeed trying to shoot him down, but he had missed. Ning thought for a moment about what he could do. Could he just tell them that he knew who the killer was? Would they even believe him? How would he even explain how he came to learn about the truth? There were too many problems to simply blurt out an answer. For now, he needed some time to think of what to do next and gather some more information. In a haste, he could only think to do a single thing. Imprison me. What the hell? The captains of the battleships looked around at their peers with a confused look. They hadn't expected Ning, with such a giant beast, to simply ask them to imprison him so easily. Is he scared we will kill him? They thought. Give me a rope, the captain with the thick mustache asked of the soldiers. Yes, sir. Some of them immediately ran away to get a rope. When they did bring it back, the captain tossed one end of the rope to Ning. Tie it around yourself, he shouted. Okay. Ning quickly did as told and before long he had finished making a tight knot. The captain pulled on it to make sure it was properly tied and then shouted back, now unsummon your beast. Unsummon my, sigh. Ning understood what the captain was planning and sighed regarding the fact that so many of his pearls would sink to the bottom the moment he did so. I can get it back later, he thought and did as asked. You're free to leave. A massive blinding circle of light appeared underneath the turtle and suddenly the battleships shook as the water moved in to fill the gap that the giant turtle had created. Ning fell into the water, but the captain was holding on to the other end of the rope. Pull. The captain shouted and his men went up to him and pulled on the rope without wasting a single time. Ning was pulled onto the boat like an anchor and tossed on board. A dozen different guns pointed at him and he had to lie there, face down with his hands far apart. Tie him up, the captain ordered and Ning was tied up with some crude metal cuffs. Finally, they pulled him to his feet and the captain placed a gun on his forehead. Now, speak. Why do you want to be imprisoned? He asked. Ning smiled. Because I didn't want to die, he said. The captain cocked his gun again. One last chance, he said. Shit, Ning thought. Well, I guess there's no use in hiding it. I know the assassin who killed your prince, Ning said. You, what? The captain was shocked. He had been ready to shoot his gun, but now, there was no way he could shoot him. Who? The captain shouted. It's a girl named Janine from an assassin's group known as the Shadows Anarchy, Ning said. It's them? The captain was shocked. Those fucking bastards, they want to ruin our country. The captain started rambling, quickly forgetting about Ning. Captain, another man that was of higher rank than the soldier called out to the captain. Huh? The turned around. You cannot simply believe what this man is saying. We need to verify the facts first, he said. Yes, yes. You're right, Vice Captain. Thank you, the captain said and turned towards Ning. How do you know this piece of information? He asked. What do I say here? Ning thought. I have my ways. I cannot speak of my connections, Ning said. Fine, we'll make you speak. Put him in a cell and keep an eye on him. Shoot him the moment you see signs of summoning, the captain ordered. Yes, sir. The soldiers took him below the deck and put him in a cage in the middle of the room. Then, 4 different soldiers sat around the cage with their guns ready to shoot whenever necessary. Ning sat on the metal floor of the cage and looked around. It didn't look like any of them were willing to speak with him, so he simply closed his eyes and opened his ears. Many different sounds came to with such intensity that Ning nearly flinched. However, he quickly got used to it and focused on the one that mattered. The one that belonged to the captain. Do you really believe it could be the Shadows Anarchy that did this, Captain? The vice captain spoke to the captain somewhere in the ship. I see this as the most possible case, the captain said. More than the other ones? The vice captain asked. What? Are you saying this was done by the queen to stay in power? Are you saying this was done by the young prince who isn't even 10? Who else but the Shadows Anarchy could do this? The captain asked. What about the late king's brother? Maybe he's trying to return from his exile, the vice captain said. That's impossible, the captain said. Is it? The vice captain asked. Yes, the captain said. But he killed the king, didn't he? What's stopping him from killing the prince? The vice captain asked. He didn't kill the king. That was just a lie we spread because we never figured out who killed the king, the captain said. What? The vice captain hadn't known about this at all. He thought for a moment and said, that still doesn't get him out of suspicion, does it? He could have killed the king, the same way he could have killed the prince. I told you, that's impossible, the captain said. Why is that more impossible than the Shadows Anarchy doing it all? The vice captain asked. Because I killed the damn man myself. What? The vice captain couldn't believe it. You killed the exiled prince? He was never exiled. I killed him and told the people he was exiled, the captain said. I don't understand. Why would you kill the previous prince? The vice captain asked. Because the king ordered me to, the captain said. The king ordered you to kill his own brother. How? Why would he do that? The vice captain felt like everything he knew was a lie. Because the prince did try to kill his brother. The king was stabbed in the chest in the night by his brother. Fortunately, he missed his heart and the king could summon a healing beast for himself. He then captured his own brother and tried to kill him, but it was too much for him and gave me the job, the captain said as he remembered the day he killed the previous prince. Phew, this country sure does love killing its royal family, doesn't it? Ning thought to himself. Had he spoken up, he would have most likely been shot. A king that doesn't hesitate to give the order to kill his own brother. Then the king dies for some reason and now the crown prince that is to become the king dies at the hands of an assassin, Ning thought. In the first place, what the hell kind of name is the Shadows Anarchy? That doesn't sound like the name of an assassin group, Ning thought. System. A little bit of information on them PLZ. Ning got a short version of the information about the group. The Shadows Anarchy were indeed assassins, but they hadn't started that way. They were first established in a kingdom that no longer exists. It was a group formed by some of the oppressed people in that group kingdom that was run by a dictator. It was a rebellious group that killed the dictator and freed their country. When they were finally free and information about the outer world started trickling in, they learned that there were more people like them around the world. People that were oppressed under tyrannical kings and governments that only thought of themselves and nobody else. The Shadows Anarchy formed from that same group that wished to free others as they had freed themselves. They would go to other countries, hide in the shadows and incite anarchy before killing the kings and heads of the country. Once done, they moved on. They were so successful that most countries started reforming in fear of their arrival. At the same time, the Shadows Anarchy had now grown to such a scale that their members were now bona fide assassins from all the killings they had done. Some of the higher-ups in the group noticed this and started taking in commission work. They would agree to kill royals and nobles for some price. When they then saw how beneficial it was, and how rich it made them, they didn't need to think much. Overnight, the rebellion group that was meant to be there for people that needed their help, turned into an assassin group that only looked out for themselves. Now they only killed for money. That's a shame. It was such a revolutionary group too, and all that changed for what? A few pearls. Ning couldn't help but shake his head. However, he even had to stop doing that when he saw the soldiers grab their guns and prepared to shoot. Damn it, he thought and stopped moving. He thought back to the tragedy that was the Shadow's anarchy. Right, someone had to pay them to make them kill the prince. System, who was it? He asked. The system gave an answer and Ning's eyes narrowed. Really? I wouldn't have had more hope than this, Ning thought. Create an illusion of me in this exact position. System, I need to go somewhere, Ning said. An illusion of his appeared in the same position as Ning was. From the outside, it didn't look like anything changed. In fact, the illusion was even breathing lightly and blinking from time to time just like a human would. However, on the inside, it was totally empty as Ning had already left the cage. Ning arrived inside a room. He looked at the beautifully designed tapestry hung on one side of the wall, the unique patterns on the white ceiling, and the expensive furniture that was scattered around the room. Ah! Guards! Ning heard a woman's voice and turned around. Behind him was a woman in white. From head to toe, the only color that wasn't white was her brown skin, and her flaming red hair. Assassin! Assassin! The woman shouted when she saw Ning. I can assure you, I'm not an assassin, Ning said. But I am here on that topic. I wanted to ask why you killed him. What? The woman asked with a confused expression. Why did you want him dead? Is there any possible reason why a mother would ever want her son dead, Your Highness? Ning asked. The queen's face paled. Are you saying I killed my son? She asked. The shock and anger in her voice sounded quite natural in Ning's ears as if she could have never done it. However, Ning knew it was her that paid the Shadow's anarchy to kill the prince. After all, the system had told him that it was the queen that ordered the assassination. You should work in a theater with that level of acting skills, Ning said. How dare you say that I would kill my own son? Who the hell are you to say that I would kill my own boy? The queen shouted. No need to act, I just want to know why. Why would a mother kill her son? Was he actually not your son but a bastard of the previous king? Ning asked. Wait, on that note, who killed the previous king? Ning asked. Guards. The queen shouted again, and Ning could hear them running towards her already. He had just a few more seconds. You killed your husband too. Ning couldn't believe it. You not only killed your husband but also your son? Why? Did you only marry them because you wanted the throne? The guards were nearly at the door by then. Whatever, Ning thought and walked forward towards the queen. Don't come near me, the queen shouted, but she couldn't keep Ning away. Ning grabbed her head and immediately used supreme domination. You will tell the truth about your son's murder to everyone, Ning ordered her. At the same time, the doors opened and he vanished. Your Highness, are you all right? The guards asked. The queen looked around. I must have been hallucinating. Your Highness, you should get some sleep, one of the female guards spoke up. Yes, I should do that, but I need to find my son's murderer first, she said. We might get that in a few hours, Your Highness. Apparently, the soldiers found someone in the sea with answers. They will be here soon. Ning arrived back in his cage where the illusion disappeared to show the real him. The soldiers didn't realize that had happened, and neither did Ning want them to. He stayed in his cage, thinking to himself how he simply wanted to leave right now. If he disappeared from here, it would cause a commotion, but no one would know who he was, so they wouldn't be able to check him. However, for some reason, he couldn't let go of the thought of bringing justice to that poor young prince that had to die for nothing. He had checked the prince's history and there was nothing in it that would suggest he would make a bad king. Which meant, the fault was entirely on the queen for not wanting to leave the throne. Not only did she kill her husband, but she killed his son as well, he thought. How could a woman do that? At the very least, she had to be mentally ill to make such a choice. It doesn't have anything to do with me, he thought, but deep down he knew that he would have to help. He would feel guilty if he left right now, knowing he left a murderer on the throne for all the people in the country to suffer. He sighed. All he could do was wait for the queen to tell everyone she did it as he ordered her to and he could go back to his day. While there wasn't necessarily anything for him to do, he still wanted to be there for the princess to practice her newly learned summoning skills. The door opened and a few people walked in. Ning straightened up from his slouched position when he saw that it was the captain and the vice-captain that walked in with a bunch of other soldiers. Cover up the windows, the captain ordered. The soldiers quickly moved to pull back some very thick black curtains that completely blocked the light. By the time they were done, it was impossible to tell if it was day or night in the room. Ning wondered what they were doing when he heard a few clanks on the deck as a few pearls scattered around him. Ning looked around him to see why they were doing what they were doing when he heard the captain speak. Good, he hasn't summoned anything, he said. The captain then pulled up a chair and sat close to the cage. You summon anything, my men shoot you. Understood? Ning nodded. At the same time, he saw the pearls around the captain leave wisps of steam-like line that flew towards him. He's summoned something. Ning understood. The pearls would only lose energy at such a quick speed if there was something else vacuum that they could fill. This meant that the captain was currently without a lot of his spiritual energy, which in turn meant he had summoned something. Ning quickly used his spiritual analysis to see what it was and was surprised to see that he was in fact summoning something. Lie detecting skill, huh? He thought. What's your name? The captain asked. Ning Ruigong, Ning replied without hesitation. Where are you from? The captain asked. The Darius Kingdom. The captain's eyes narrowed a bit. Do you have any connection with the Shadows Anarchy? He asked. None, Ning said. The captain sensed that he was telling the truth. Did this Janine girl really kill our prince? And is she from the Shadows Anarchy? The captain asked. Yes, she is from the Shadows Anarchy, and she was hired to kill your prince and did kill him, Ning said. Do you know how she did it? The captain asked. From what I heard, she used some sort of poison that would burn a person's skin while melting their lungs such that they would drown to death from their own blood, Ning answered. The captain was surprised by how easily Ning was answering everything and how nothing he said had been false until now. He looked down at the spheres, but only the pearls next to him were losing light. The ones near Ning remained ever so bright. How do you know all this? The captain asked. I heard it from somewhere, Ning said. Where? The captain asked. I used a power to find the truth when you caught me this morning, Ning said. The captain's face became weird at the surprisingly stupid-sounding answer, and yet, there were no lies in his words. What? What power? What did you summon? The captain was surprised. Were there powers that could tell the truth to a person? Was there an omniscient beast out there that knew everything? Ning decided to ignore the captain's question and instead told him. I know who hired the killer too, he said. The captain's eyes went wide. Who? He asked. Ning looked around. You want me to tell you here? He asked. The captain pushed back his intense curiosity and looked around at his men. Everyone, out, now, he ordered. As the men were leaving, the captain made the vice captain do the job of the soldiers and get ready to shoot as soon as he sensed any funny business. Once everyone was gone, the captain turned around. Tell me, now, he said. Ning took a deep breath and told them, it was the queen. The captain's heart started beating faster from the sudden shock the information brought him. However, he pushed it down to look at Ning and try and figure out if he was lying at all. There was not a single hint of a lie in his words. Dear God. Was it really the queen? The captain couldn't help but show his shock on the outside. Ning shrugged. That's what it told me when I asked the question. You can try asking the queen herself if you ever meet her, he said. Don't worry about that, the captain said. We will arrive at the shore any minute now. I will take you to the queen and we will find out. The captain brought Ning out of the cage when the ship came to a stop. When Ning got out, he looked out from the deck and was immediately surprised. Yorshan Kingdom was an archipelago with many small islands that were near each other. Most seemed to have bridges between them, but there were some that were too far away to have bridges. The ship was landed on the main island in the center of the giant cluster of islands and the soldiers were preparing to allow them to disembark. This is... Ning looked at the island he was on that was barely 500 meters in all directions. This is the royal island of Yorshan. This is where the queen lives, the captain told him and had the soldiers take him down. The vice captain got close to the captain and started speaking with him. Captain, do you believe what he's saying? He asked. He's telling the truth. I have no doubt about it, the captain said.
I can understand that. I know he was telling the truth, but maybe he was telling his truth. You know what I'm saying? He asked.
The captain stopped. You think he's saying what he believes is true and doesn't know exactly what happened? He asked. Yes, exactly. I'm not saying the man lied. I'm saying he doesn't know the real truth and could have been fed up with this fake truth by someone else that he believes is this different power, the vice captain said. The captain thought for a moment. You are right. He could be lying without knowing he's lying, the captain said. Don't worry. I finally got the chance to speak with the queen. I will find out the truth on my own. The vice captain nodded and they started walking into the palace. Ning walked in freely as there was nothing more for him to worry about. He would meet the queen, she would confess, the soldiers would apologize and he would be back in Darius within the hour, ready to go teach the princess. He looked around the walls of the palace as he walked in. The man's spears that were placed on the walls fully brightened the palace. One of the servants bowed in front of them and spoke up. Her Majesty will be with you in just a moment. The captain nodded and the servant walked away. He then turned towards Ning. Listen up. I'm setting up some ground rules here, he said. When we're in front of the queen, you will not talk at all. I will do all the talking, the captain said. Ning shrugged. Fine by me. He didn't have anything else to talk about anyway. He looked around the waiting area where he was seated and saw that while the designs, paintings, and furniture here were quite good, they had nothing on the things he saw in the room he had teleported to. Damn, did I teleport to the queen's quarters earlier? He thought. Thank God I didn't get in during an awkward moment. A servant arrived again, bringing another message. The queen is ready to see you. The captain stood and brought Ning along with the servant. Ning was brought to a room all white. The floor was made up of white marble that was polished to such an extent that he could clearly see his own reflection on it. The walls were white too, but they had paintings and ornaments hung on them. One of the paintings was of a middle-aged man with a fit body standing on top of a boar-like beast. That was the king, huh? He thought. Up ahead on the seat was the woman he had seen earlier. She was in the same white dress as before. Finally, I can leave, Ning thought when he saw the queen on the throne. Your servant greets you, Your Majesty. The captain bowed while Ning remained standing as he wouldn't be needed to in front of his own servant. Get up, Captain. We do not have time for such frivolous formalities for the moment, the queen said. Have you found the murderer who killed my son? I have not, Your Majesty, the captain said. Sigh, Janine huh? Where is she again? Ning asked the system. According to it, Janine was still on one of these islands, spending her time asleep in a tavern. So carefree, he thought. If you haven't figured out who killed my child, then why are you here, Captain? The queen asked. Then, her eyes turned toward her master. And why do you have him in cuffs? Take them off. I'm afraid I cannot do that, Your Highness. We still don't know who this person is and he may be harmful, the captain said. The reason I brought him here is that he said he knows who the killer is. The queen's eyes went wide. You do? She asked Ning. Ning was a little taken aback by her surprise and looked toward the queen to see if he should answer the question or not. The captain shook his head and turned to the queen. Your Majesty, before we hear his potential lies, I was hoping you would have some idea of who did this. I wondered if you knew who killed your son, the captain asked. Ning sighed in relief. Finally, the captain had reached that line of questioning. What do you mean, Captain? Why would I know who would want to kill my child? He was loved by everyone. The queen spoke as tears streamed down her eyes. Wait, what? Ning's eyes narrowed in surprise. Why isn't she confessing? This man here claims that it was you who did it, the captain said, his eyes never leaving the queen. The queen's face turned shocked. I did not. I would never bring harm to my own child, the queen said. And the captain found truth in those words. What the hell? Ning couldn't help but speak in surprise. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. The queen's eyes turned cold as she turned towards Ning. This man dared say that I would kill my own child? The captain shuddered. Yes, Your Majesty. Punish him. The queen spoke up. Kill him the same way my child died. Burn him and then drown him. Ning stood up with a weird look on his face. How are you fighting my subordination skill? Ning asked. Stand down. The captain shouted with a gun in his hands. Go away, Captain. I've indulged you long enough, Ning said as he grabbed the gun with his left hand and crushed it like paper. The captain tried to shoot but the bullet wouldn't leave the chamber anymore. Ning ignored the captain and looked at the woman. I order you to speak the truth, he said. Captain. Stop standing around, kill him, the queen shouted. Kill me? Your master? Ning looked at her. Are you not the queen? A body double? Ning couldn't understand. The captain hit him in the back of his head with a strong arm, the strength of which he had summoned from a beast just now. However, when he expected Ning's skull to crack open, he instead felt a blinding pain in his hand. He could feel his own fingers crack and he was certain he had injured his finger bones. Captain, why are you doing this? I'm trying to help you find the murderer, Ning said. She's not the murderer, the captain shouted. Ning sighed. Let me prove it to you, he said as she snapped off the metal cuffs that were simply bracelets for him now that the chains were already broken off. Ning could try and use the supreme domination skill on the queen again to see if it had simply not worked the last time. However, the confession wouldn't be any sort of proof since Ning will have clearly interfered with the queen. Let me go find the murderer, Ning said as he disappeared right in front of their eyes. What? The captain was surprised and looked around. He tried touching the air where Ning was and wondered if he was perhaps invisible. However, there was nothing there. Just then, Ning reappeared back where he was standing. The captain jumped back in surprise before quickly returning to his feet as he looked at Ning. Next to him was a green-haired woman who Ning had grabbed by the nape. The girl had daggers in her hand that she tried to stab Ning with, but all she could hear were clangs as if he was wearing armor beneath his simple clothes. Let go of me. Who are you? Why are you doing this? She shouted. Let go of her, the captain shouted at Ning as well when he saw the helpless girl struggling next to the brute of a man. Really? You want me to let her go? Ning asked. Even after you know she is Janine, the girl who murdered your prince? Wah. The captain was dumbfounded. Wah what? And no, I didn't kill the prince. I don't know what you are talking about, the girl screamed on top of her lung. Ning turned the girl towards the captain and let him see her fully. Janine was a short girl with a petite body type wearing a fully black dress. The daggers in her hands were sharp, but the flat side of them was dull enough to not reflect any lights. Why did you kill the prince? Ning asked. I did not kill the prince, I promise. I don't know what you are talking about, she shouted. The captain looked at Janine, in shock, as his lie-detecting skill was telling him that she was in fact lying. What's your name, girl? He asked. Lila. My name is Lila, she said. Another lie. Answer me in yes or no question only, the captain said with eyes that were fueled with rage. The girl feared those eyes of the captain. She swallowed a bit and nodded quickly. Did you kill the prince? He asked. I don't know what you. Yes or no, the captain shouted, making the girl flinch back a bit. No. The girl managed to speak despite her fear. The captain realized that was a lie. She had in fact killed the prince. Are you part of the Shadows Anarchy? The captain asked. Wah. No. The girl remembered to answer in yes or no question only. The captain closed his eyes as he realized they had got the murderer for their prince. At the very least, his death wouldn't go unavenged. Do you know the man who is grabbing you? The captain asked. No, I don't know who the hell this psychopath is that grabbed me in my sleep, she shouted. That was the first truth she had ever spoken since coming here. The captain looked at Ning and realized that he had nothing to do with this. That meant, it was very much likely that he was speaking the truth. So, with a heavy heart, he opened his eyes and asked, Did the queen order you to kill the prince? What? I did not. Yes or no, the captain reminded her. No, the girl said. The captain was taken aback and Ning caught the change in expression. What is it? You got it? He asked. What do you mean? The captain asked. Is she lying or not? Ning asked. How? The captain was stunned when he realized that Ning knew what he was doing this whole time. However, now was not the time to be shocked. No, she's telling the truth. That can't be. Ning looked at the captain, and then to the queen. Finally, he turned back to the girl and asked, Do you know who ordered you to kill the prince? Why do you keep asking that? I already told you. Ning suddenly turned her around and looked into her eyes. Listen here, we already know who you are working for, and what you've done to the prince. I don't like violence, but I have no qualms in killing a bitch that doesn't hesitate to kill a 15-year-old kid. Now, tell me if you know who ordered you, or I will crush your throat right here. The girl's eyes widened with fear as she knew she had been caught. In those cases, there was only one thing she could do. Suicide. Every assassin was sent with 2 fake molars that were on either side of their upper teeth. The 2 molars contained powders that were normally harmless. However, when the 2 powders were mixed together and then swallowed, they created a poison that would painlessly kill them within a moment's notice. Since Janine had been caught and the only punishment for a murderer would be death, she decided to take her own life. She flicked her right molar with her tongue and then her left one. The powders fell from the 2 teeth and mixed with her saliva to become poison. Once there was enough saliva, she swallowed and waited for the sweet bliss of death. You can't kill yourself to get away from answering me. Ning's voice woke her up from her bliss as she realized she was still staring into his fury-filled eyes. What? Why am I not dead? She thought. You want to die? Ning asked as if he could read her thoughts. I will kill you then. Fire immediately lit behind her as she felt her green hair burn and the fire quickly try and consume her. Ah! She shouted. Answer me, or I will leave you to the soldiers to be tortured, Ning shouted at her. I'll answer. I will, she spoke back once she realized there was no running away from this. Ning waited for her to speak up. I really don't know where the order came from. I only do as the higher-ups ask me to. If you want to know where the order came from, you will have to ask them, she shouted. The higher-ups? Ning frowned. These were the people that gave up on saving lives and instead started taking them for their monetary benefit. These were scums amongst scum. Fine, we'll ask your higher-ups, Ning said and immediately teleported. The girl looked around in shock as she realized that they had once again changed location. She had thought she was going mad the first time around, but this time she knew that she wasn't. Instead, the man beside her could do things that she hadn't seen before. Ning grabbed her head and immediately dominated her mind. He didn't want to bother keeping an eye on her. Stay here. I will go look for these higher-ups. Yes, master, the girl respectfully said and did not move from where she stood. Ning walked away, as he felt the ground shift beneath him. He was on a boat that was moving in the sea. System, give me a map of the ship, he asked and was soon provided with one. He looked through the map and realized where he was. And he realized where the higher-ups were staying. A man in his 40s was sleeping in a bed with pearls spread all around him. He could enjoy anything he wanted with all of this treasure, but he wanted strength instead. While the others indulged themselves in foods, treasures, and the pleasure of the flesh, this man only cared about getting stronger. After all, only when he got truly strong could he claim the organization for his own, and no one would dare claim otherwise. There was a constant smile on his face as he gathered up the spiritual energy to reach this goal of his. Just then, he heard a slight bump to his left and turned around. When he did, he saw a young man standing in the room. This is the wrong room. If you want to be devoured by that old hag, she's in the room next door, the man said and went back to absorbing the energy. No, I'm looking for you. Ning spoke up and walked towards him. The man turned around. Why do you need me? He asked. I need you to call an emergency meeting for all the higher-ups right now, Ning said. Need? Huh. Who do you think, yo? Clank. Ning produced a spear from his storage and stabbed the man through his palm and halfway into the metal frame of the bed. I don't have time for your nonsense. I will give you one chance. Next time you say something and don't do what I say, this spear will go through your forehead, he said. The man grunted with pain as Ning pulled back the spear from his palm. Blood spilled all over the pearls to his side, giving a red glow to the area. The spearhead suddenly appeared next to his throat, nearly piercing through his skin. Get a move on, Ning ordered. Yes, yes. The man shouted and stood up. Half naked, he ran out of the room and ordered someone to quickly bring all the higher-ups to the meeting room. Ning walked behind the man with his spear. Good, at least you aren't stupid enough to not listen to my words, unlike that other woman with a massive mole on her chin, he said. Serene? The man asked in fear in his heart. I don't know her name. I didn't bother asking before I killed her. The man's face darkened with fear. Would he have died if he didn't do what he was told to do? Ning followed the man to the meeting hall with a frown on his face. His mood had noticeably worsened after coming to this ship. Not only were there assassins that killed for money, but there were also deplorable people all over this ship. The very first person he went to forcefully make the other higher-ups gather was a woman who was forcing herself on a young man that kept begging her to stop. Ning had lied when he told this man that she hadn't listened to him. He hadn't spoken in the first place. The very thing he did when he entered the room was put his spear through the woman's head and free the young man. After that, there was no way his mood could get any better at all. The man reached the meeting hall and sat in one of the 13 different seats. Ning went ahead and sat in one of them as well as he waited for the rest of the 11 people to gather. Ning sat in the room with a frown on his face, waiting for the rest of the people to come in. Don't even think about summoning. The moment I get a hint of power from you, you will die, Ning threatened the man. The man's eyes went wide with fear as he was just about to do exactly that. He controlled his spiritual energy and didn't use it at all as he quietly watched the spearhead that was red with blood. Some his own, some from Serene. They waited for a while as people started pouring in. What the hell, Klaus? I was just starting to have fun. Do you know how hard it is to get it up at this age? An old man walked in wearing nothing but a bathrobe. Another woman yawned as she entered the room. I was having the best dream I had in a long time. Why was I called? She asked. What's the emergency? Did someone fail their task? Do we need to let someone else take care of them? Another man walked in asking many questions. Slowly the people poured into the room. Every single one of them had hair full of yellow or green color, making them some of the strongest people Ning had seen in a while. The 11th person finally entered the room. He looked around and saw an empty seat next to the old man in the bathrobe. However, it seemed that he didn't like this man at all. So, he instead looked for other places to seat in. Oi kid, leave, he said as he stood next to Ning with his hulking figure. There's an empty seat right there. You can go there, Ning said. Ha ha ha. This one's got quite the tongue in him. I wonder what it would feel when he uses it on M. The spear went through the man's skull before he could finish his words. The people around the room suddenly got up from their chairs and walked back in fear. What the hell? Who is this kid? An assassin? They all questioned amongst themselves when they saw him. Ning pulled back the spear as it brought along with it blood, viscera, and brain matter from the man's skull. The man flopped onto the table with his eye wide open, dripping with bloody tears. Ning grabbed the man by his shirt and threw him into the empty chair in front of him. A piece of the man's cloth tore itself due to Ning's force, which he used to wipe away the blood that was on the table in front of Ning. Now that we are all here, we may begin, Ning said to them. Klaus? What the hell is going on? One of the men shouted in fear. I don't know. I was forced to call an emergency meeting, the man that had brought Ning here spoke. The other 10 men and women looked around in fear and confusion when one of them finally realized someone was missing. Where's Serene? He asked. Dead, just like you will be if you don't sit down, Ning said. Just because you key. Ning threw his spear directly into the man's skull, exploding it into many pieces. The spear that left his hand was now akin to a cannonball because of how strong he was. Ning put his arm up and the spear flew back into his arm. Of the original 13 figures that ran the Shadows Anarchy, only 10 remained. If you don't want to die right now, don't do anything stupid and sit down, Ning said to the remaining men and women. The old men and women looked around before slowly getting back onto their seats, ignoring with all their life the bloody smell that was starting to come from the 2 dead bodies next to them. Who are you? One of the women asked. I ask the questions here, Ning said while glaring back at everyone. The group feared for their life and quickly nodded. Now, which one of you scumbags approved the murder of a young man that wasn't even 15 years old? Ning asked. What? A few of them looked confused. However, one of the man-woman there took a deep breath when she realized what he was talking about. Ning's eyes moved and he stared at her now. It was you, wasn't it? He asked. Which 15-year-old? She asked with fear audible in her voice. The Prince of Yorshan. Did you accept the assassination request? Ning asked. I did, the woman said. Do you have papers or records on the transaction that happened? Ning asked. Why yes I do, she said, not daring to lie even a little bit. Give me the record, Ning said. Oh okay, the woman said. But it's in my room, it's... Before the woman could finish her words, Ning teleported out and teleported back into the room. Only this time he had a stack of paper in his hand. He thumped it on the table in front of the woman and asked, which one is it? Pick it out, quickly. Yes, the woman said and started flipping through the pages. Ning and the rest of the people watched her flip through the paper, and Klaus realized that Ning was distracted at the moment. This was his moment. He acted like he was looking at the woman too, but instead, he was already reaching for the beast that he would always ask for powers from. At this point, they had a certain friendly bond between them that made the beast never want to reject his offer. Given the situation, Klaus was very generous with his offer. The beast was surprised when he heard the new offer and was quite happy with it. As such, the power that Klaus got was far better than anything he had received before. Klaus's hair turned from green to blue, something everyone would be jealous of. At the same time, the skills of a shadow beast went into him and he did not hesitate to use them. When no one was looking at him, Klaus used the shadow around him and vanished. Ning was watching the woman flip through the pages when he noticed something shift in his omnidirectional vision. He turned around and managed to see the moment right when the blue-haired Klaus suddenly disappeared. The remaining 9 people also turned towards the seat after Klaus vanished. They looked around, nervously as they wondered what they should do. "Did you find the record yet?" Ning asked the woman. "No, not yet," she said. "Then search for it," he ordered her. Yes, she continued searching and after a while finally found the piece of paper she was looking for. "Here." She gave it to Ning. Ning looked at the paper and frowned. It did not say that the one that requested the assassination was the queen. Instead, it was someone named Hellarach. "Who's Hellarach?" Ning asked with a confused look. A servant of the royal family," the woman quickly answered, thinking that Ning was asking her. "A servant of the Yorshan royal family?" Ning asked. Yes, she quickly nodded. "How do you know this?" Ning asked. We usually follow the person that commissions us back to their place of residence to learn who they are," the woman said. "To learn their identity, huh? You use this to blackmail or something?" Ning asked. "We use it to get what we want," the woman said. "Scumbags, all of you," Ning said with a sneer on his face. He looked at the paper for a moment as a thought came to his mind. "The king of Yorsa died 5 years ago. Was that your doing too?" he asked. "The king, I believe Klaus knows about that," the woman spoke. "Klaus is that guy?" Ning pointed to the empty chair. "Yes," the woman said. "Good, let's ask him." Ning disappeared again, leaving them all in surprise before returning back with Klaus in his hands. Ning was grabbing the back of Klaus's skull. "I told you that you would die if you summoned anything, and yet you still summoned it. Are you seeking death that much?" Ning asked. How did you find me?" "How?" he asked. "Doesn't matter. Tell me, did you approve of the murder of the king of Yorshan?" Ning asked. "Who?" Klaus asked. "The king of Yorshan," Ning said. "I don't know. I approve of many assassinations. I don't remember every little person from a backwater country I kill," Klaus shouted. "Is that what a person's life is to you?" Ning asked as anger flared in his heart again. "You sit here, approving whether a person lives or dies, like an executioner. Well, karma is back to bite you, bitch. I'm the judge, jury, and executioner here for all of you scumbags, and there is only a single verdict in this court: death." Ning slammed Klaus' head onto the table so hard that the table split in half while Klaus's face caved in. The other older men and women moved back as they looked at Ning with fear in their eyes. "You are going to kill us too?" the man in the bathrobe asked. "Is there a reason you deserve to live?" Ning asked. The 9 remaining people realized that simply obeying what he said wasn't going to keep them alive. If they wanted to live, they needed to fight back. That was something they hadn't done in many years, but now they had to. They used their spiritual sense and reached into the darkness for whatever they could find. Ning walked over the broken table towards the elderlies that were trying to summon whatever they could. He went directly towards the woman who had approved of the prince's death and stabbed her through her heart. Fire fizzled in her hands as she had just summoned some skills of her own. Ning pulled the spear upwards with such force that the woman's body ripped in half as it was thrown away. A jaguar-like beast was summoned with wind trembling at its every roar. Another beast, a bull with a very sharp horn, ran directly in Ning's direction. Ning flipped his spear and used the butt of the spear to strike the bull in its face so hard that it was unsummoned. Then, he walked through the storm the jaguar produced and beat it until it was unsummoned as well. Lightning crackled from somewhere as one of the men threw lightning bolts at Ning. Each strike struck Ning, burning his clothes, but even as it burned, nothing happened to Ning. Ning didn't just have a strong body anymore, he could also negate 80% of all heat, sound, kinetic, and electrical energy. Which meant the lightning strike did nothing to him. Ning jumped toward one of the women to the side and grabbed her when the lightning strike hit him. The woman immediately burst into fire from the strike, but nothing happened to Ning. Instead, Ning tossed his spear directly onto the man that used the lightning strike, killing him in a single shot. Of the remaining 6, 2 of them tried running to the door, but a simple push with his telekinesis forced the 2 people from not being able to open the door. At the same time, a massive air cutter was released from Ning's hand and cut the 2 people that were trying to escape. Ning looked at the remaining 4 and saw the fear in their eyes. All he could think about when he saw that were the victims that would have the same eyes when they died. That only made his fury grow more, and within a minute the remaining 4 died as well. He looked around to make sure nobody was alive. When he was sure, he took some of the blood and wrote a warning on the wall. He left a message for the assassins that would come here. He told them that the Shadows Anarchy was hereby disbanded. And if anyone tried to start it again, or tried to start their very own assassins organization, he would come and do the same to them that happened to these people. Once the writing on the wall was done, he left.